Though tensions have risen between the Alliance and the Horde, the true enemy of the world lies unseen. Beyond the dark portal lies a universe of unending conflict, where the shattered realm of Outland has become the battlefield for a dark and murderous crusade. The Burning Legion has returned to claim vengeance, with a host of new terrifying warriors, such as the Wrathguard, Fell Reavers, the Shivan, and Warp Stalkers. While Outland's native denizens, the Ethereals, Nether Dragons, Naru, and the Gron rally countless others to war. Sparked by these events, abandoned sanctuaries on Azeroth now pulse with new life. Karazhan, the darkened tower of Medivh, bristles with arcane energy and the horrors unleashed by its former master. Its cursed halls now teem with the restless shades of the past. Yet, within the fabled caverns of time, the past has come full circle. Despite the efforts of the Bronze Dragonflight, windows into Azeroth's history have opened wide, allowing adventurers to experience the past firsthand. Journey through Hillsbrad and Durnhold Keep when the young orc Thrall first set out to discover his epic destiny. Venture through the Black Morass, where the fallen Guardian Medivh first opened the Dark Portal and ushered in an age of chaos upon the world. Witness the majesty of the World Tree Nordrassil as 3 heroic armies join forces to defend it from the insidious Archimonth and put a final end to the Burning Legion's invasion of Azeroth. In the present, a proud, ancient race has embraced a new beginning. Quel'Thalas has been reborn. The High Elves, now known as Blood Elves, lost the source of their eternal power when their kingdom was ravaged by the undead scourge. Desperate to replenish their energies, they now siphon dark magics from beyond the world. Flush with their newfound strength, the Blood Elves have reclaimed their beloved Eversong Forest. Based within their capital of Silvermoon City, they continue their reckless quest to claim new sources of arcane power. Once staunch allies of the Alliance, the Blood Elves turned away from their former comrades in arms. Their obsession to gain power at any cost has set them on a collision course with the Horde, and a destiny they could not have foreseen.
World of Warcraft, baby! Yeah! My nipples are all hard and
I'm gonna pwn noobs.
We're at EB Games in West Hollywood for the release of the Burning Crusade.
Waiting for the World of Warcraft expansion to come out.
Do you guys play together?
No, we play different servers. He's Horde, I'm Alliance.
Oh, that's like separate bedrooms.
Wait until she levels up so I can kill her.
we knew what a magnitude it would be, but, honestly didn't think it would be this big of a line.
There's a bunch of noobs here. I can see them.
Have your receipts ready, I'll make it go faster.
You know, I'm looking forward to the new Alliance race.
New levels, new weapons, flying mounts, new professions, new races.
I'm looking for World PvP because I hate Horde, so I kill Horde when I see Horde.
Lord!
think I'm looking forward to my little pet that I'm going to get when I get the collector's edition.
I wanted the pet.
If someone doesn't play WoW, what do you say to convince them?
I really didn't have to say much. I got him into WoW. I got like 7 of my friends into WoW. My ex-girlfriend, emphasis on the ex.
I wouldn't talk to them if they don't play WoW.
It feels great. So who's hotter, the Night Elves or the Blood Elves?
Oh, the blood elves.
Blood Elves.
Night elves. Night elves.
I would say that the Night Elves are probably 17.334% hotter than the Blood Elves, repeating, of course.
My main is a Tauren Shaman. His name's Thangor. That's what I'm talking about. He's a elemental, so he's really into doing a lot of damage for as much as he can. I have an Orc Hunter. I have a Troll Rogue. And I have an Undead Mage. So I like doing a lot of damage.
I got tomorrow off of work, and I got today off of work to level all day, and tomorrow off of work. So tonight I'm gonna buy it, go set it up, and play all night long.
I gotta work at 7. I'll probably play right up until I get to work.
All night until school in the morning.
Yeah, I got the laptop in the car so I can load it on the way, in all honesty.
I don't know. I'm just install it and just try to get like maybe up to level like 62 or something. It's probably gonna take a while, but you know, however long it takes.
I think people are afraid of how powerful we are, because if we were to unite, which we already have, and begin to take over the world, I think 8 million people now, I think that the world would be in for a big surprise when 900 shaman come running over that mountainside, you know what I'm saying?
There's a collector's edition on the back. Yeah, you got yourself the DVD collection with behind-the-scenes stuff. You get the soundtrack from the game. You get the art of the game. You get a collector's edition card pack. And the reason why I came, the Netherwelt pet. Free map with every purchase.
Tell me about your most epic quest or battle to date.
Raiding this girl's molten core.
I've heard some of the women I know that play complaining that the new female character models promote an unrealistic standard of beauty. There's no reason for, you know, a supernatural adventure to have birthing hips. It's just no reason.
I'm gonna do an impression of my paladin, and one thing that I love about the paladin is that is healing. It's I get to heal my friend. They're like, they just do this with like holy, I don't know, bubbles, and then boom.
I've been waiting long enough. 10.5-hour shift of work, 6-hour wait for the game. It's a good day.
I just bought one, but I bought everything else, the binder, the book. No, I'm going to go home, install it, take a shower, log on, try to claim some names.
I'm very psyched.
What would get you to stop playing?
I don't want to stop. Why would I want to stop?
I'm going through the dark portal! Woo! I'm almost level 61!
Very excited to play this. I've been waiting. Waiting.
How long are you going to play for?
All night. All week maybe. All week.
You don't have to work tomorrow?
Work. There's no such thing as work with WoW.
Oh my god, I'm just so excited! I'm so excited!
My name is Christian Fernandez, and I come from Mexico just to get Burning Crusade.
My name is Jacob, and I came here to get a piece of the collector's edition of Burning Crusade, and we came from...
All right. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of The Dark Portal, or sometimes weekly dedicated TBC show. We have a very special episode for you today. We plan on doing a warrior deep dive. Highly anticipated episode. Rick's flashing that dark portal merch right there. See everybody back. We have Ozzy God, who we an episode with before. Really good friend at this point. I would consider. Lord Crixus, of course, and then a new special guest joining us as well. Absolute monster brain warrior on the P servers. Definitely a known name. We have Abide. So, how's everyone doing, man? Crix, let's start with you, man. How's your week? How's everything?
Well, I'm doing amazing, baby. I've just been grinding on these private servers, man. Playing and enjoying the game. Waiting for this announcement coming up soon.
Right.
Hype.
Yeah, we can talk about that for a second too. You know, just on that and get that reaction for a minute here. But yo, Ozzy, man, how's it been, bro?
Yeah, all good, bro. All good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. You've been pumping on the stream, man. Numbers insane, and that's just probably just coming. So, congrats, man.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
And then we have Abide joining us. First time meeting him. I don't know if Crix or Ozzy spoke with him before, man. Nice to meet you, Abide. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Great to have you. All right, so we can kick it off just with that, man. You know, BlizzCon's around the corner, and I don't know if you guys took a peek at the schedule for it, posted it. Like the polar opposite of the last physical BlizzCon, where last physical BlizzCon was Overwatch Con. Grays and I were walking around, everybody's Overwatch cosplay. World of Warcrafters, you know, it seemed like we were niche there. You know, this time it looks super WoW and Diablo heavy. One can only hope. Maybe. You guys have any thoughts about BlizzCon predictions?
All I know is an hour and 10 minutes into it, they're talking about World of Warcraft. What's next? And there's only one thing I want to hear about. I don't give a shit about Diablo. I just want that TBC, baby. That's it.
Well, yeah, if they're talking about WoW a lot, then surely that signs of good things to come. Hopefully they're going to talk about TBC a lot and like actually give us a date and a date for open beta or something. Like that is the dream and the goal anyway.
Hell yeah. Any thoughts, Abide?
Well, I don't know if you're seeing a chat, but you seem to have a mic issue right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, there's a lot of Overwatch last time. It was just kind of a bad time for WoW. And hopefully there's a lot of stuff coming out now. I think, in reality, we might just hear something about TBC being announced soon or coming out soon rather than, like, TBC in 2 months, so then type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. They could just, have it ready to go and they're just waiting for all we know.
Yo. Any better, guys, in the chat? I turned myself up a lot. I might have turned it up too much. Sorry about that. Maybe a little bit down. You know how we do. Very scuffed stream over here. But it's good to have you guys here. I'm excited. We'll get right into the slides now. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Dark Portal Warrior Deep Dive. We have two legendary warriors here representing both sides of the coin. Abide over on the PvE side mainly. I'm sure he dabbles in a bit of PvP as well. And Ozzy, kind of on the opposite end, just monster PvP warrior. You see him streaming every day, just crushing it. 2s, 3s, So we are very, very lucky, guys. Hope you guys are ready to go full sponge mode. Here, so our agenda today, we're going to do a little bit of a guest intro. We'll talk about the major class changes from Classic moving into TBC, like, you know, maybe talents, 51-point talents or 41-point talents, so on and so forth. Everything you see here, racials, faction balance, we'll touch on it for a second, gearing, itemization, PvP, PvE tank. We'll try to go through at least one spec for all of the major things you can do as a warrior, and we'll run you through that, and maybe some of this other stuff, quality of life stuff we have time for it, AoE, or, you know, gold farming, professions, things like that. So let's start with the intros. Since you're new to the stream, Abide, maybe you could be so kind as to basically just introduce yourselves to the chat and explain your history with the game leading up to where we are today.
Yeah, I'm Abide. I've been playing TBC servers, I don't know, since like Phoenix and Excalibur back in the day. I think that was like 7-8 years ago type of thing. I've been playing a lot of like private servers overall, mostly TBC. You know, try and play them out, get to the end content. The last raids are always the most fun, so. Yeah, I mean, I've played WoW since vanilla. I mean, I was like a super noob back then, though. I didn't do any raiding or anything. Kind of, you know, went through the content. Started raiding in like TBC a lot and Wrath, and kind of quit after like Cataclysm, but lots of TBC, lots of experience with that, so should be a good time today.
Hell yeah. I mean, he's selling himself a little bit short there too. He's a humble dude. I mean, Crix, I hear about Abide all the time, man, and you've been telling about him for a while. Like,
big brain,
you know,
massive brain.
Yeah, and Ozzy.
If I have a question about TBC that I need, I go to him right away. This first person I go to. He might be annoyed by now, but guess what? He answers the questions.
Yeah, man, that's his character too, right? No, that was your character on the last server release. Got that beautiful Ashes of Alara.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and Ozzy, man, if you could be so kind, I know we did this before, but maybe some people are unfamiliar with you. If you could just explain your history of the game and how we got here.
Yeah, so I played pretty much all of the TBC private servers, give or take one or two, and mainly playing PvP, a little bit of PvE back in the day, but got a few glad titles on Endless, and just play a lot of Warrior Druid and a lot of Warrior, and just love Arena really.
Hell yeah, you know, Gladiator multiple times on these private servers. Just I mean, you live it, man. You live it. You're a gamer, man. It's
got to be done.
Yeah, it's got to be done. So yeah. Anyway, we could hit him with more cringe questions, but we'll try to just get right into the meat and potatoes of this stuff.
I only came for the cringe questions, though.
Okay, you want a cringe question?
I'm kidding.
I'll ask you one, bro. Favorite snack, Abide?
Go on.
Favorite snack, bro. Favorite snack while gaming?
I actually think beef jerky is actually really good. It's kind of filling, and it gives you like protein that you're missing out on and shit about just gaming the whole time.
It only costs $1 million.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually super expensive.
It is. To build on that, what flavor of beef jerky though? And does it for you?
It's got to be something hot.
Yeah.
Got to be spicy. Yeah.
I feel you. No, beef jerky is insane. It is definitely very delicious. Okay. Well, a lot to get through here, so maybe we can just start with class changes, major class changes. Chat, we're gonna need your help with this one too, because there's not a whole lot of production value that goes into this. Like, you know, we kind of, you know, freestyle it a little bit here. So let's all think together what the major class changes are from Classic moving into TBC. Think 51-point talents. Think just like mechanics if they move it all. Anybody want to kick us off?
Sure, yeah. I mean, overall, you know, I'll say that from the start, I haven't played Classic, but I mean, I haven't played Classic WoW. I've played it in the past, but not at like a competent level, right? But so there might be something I miss here and there. But overall, its functionality is mostly the same. There's some additional spells like Spell Reflect, which is useful in PvP, and some PvE scenarios. There's a couple new abilities like Devastate for Prout Warriors that just straight replaces Sunder Armor, so you actually have like an ability, like it's basically Sunder Armor that just deals damage. Slam gets its cast time reduced back to like what it was in beta, so it's actually like a useful ability again. You use it as arms warrior, and there's other kind of 41 point. Most of the 41 point talents are kind of just like passive. They're like the arms one is like only good for PvP. There's Victory Rush. It's kind of just like a leveling spell. Rampage is a new ability for Fury. It just gives you attack power for like 30 seconds. So it's just something you passively keep up. It's not like anything really exciting. Overall, though, it's pretty similar to Classic. I mean, you get like Commanding Shot as well. It gives you health. So you can have like 2 Warrior Shots now.
That's true.
But, I mean, there's not much change. There's only a few additional things, and some functionalities kind of get increased and improved and stuff like that. A lot of quality of life stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned Rampage. Yeah, that one was probably the least exciting out of them. How interesting is Endless Rage to you as a warrior? Maybe to you, Ozzy. I always hear that this is like garbage for PvP, but there's got to be more to the story than basically it's the 41 point talent. Sorry, where you generate 25% more rage from damage dealt.
Nah, Endless Rage is actually really good for warriors because there's sometimes where you'll be playing a combo like Holy Pala Warrior, and you might be on the Holy Pala a lot, and you're not actually getting rage from anyone hitting you. So actually getting the extra rage from your attacks is really good because you're going to do like much more damage because you're actually going to have globals to press instead of just like standing there using your auto attack. And I think it's pretty huge, to be honest.
I mean, isn't it like basically required after like the first season? Like, if you ever want to kill anyone, like when people start getting health and resilience and armor, like especially when like this cloth, you start getting the bonus armor pieces.
Yeah, I think it's. I pretty much always play with this talent. I know I've never ever played without it. It's that big.
Well, that goes, I was trusting the chat a little bit too much. I was streaming a few of it, and they're like, "Yo," they're making fun of me, like, "Yo, you have endless rage. What are you doing?"
It's actually really good. Like, especially like when he's like, you typically don't want to focus the warrior in PvP, right? Because you're just giving him free rage. Like,
and
you have to sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah. Okay, well, see, so when you're playing your main, right, like with Warrior Druid, you're playing with this most of the time, Ozzy? Like all seasons?
Yeah, always. If I play... Yeah. All seasons. Like, if I play Warrior Druid, I'll use this. And then if I play with a Shaman, then I won't get it. I'll get Flurry, and I lose out on the Endless Rage. But if I play Warrior Druid, I always use the Endless Rage.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it's a really good talent then, I guess, if it's that crucial.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
Huge. Okay, and then you said Devastate.
I pretty much say it's required. Like, if you want a PvP at a level where you're going to kill people, for sure.
You said Devastate like literally replaces Sunder Armor. Like you never would use Sunder Armor.
Yeah, it's basically just a Sunder Armor that does damage. So it just straight replaces Sunder Armor. You could like technically keep Sunder Armor if you wanted to be cheeky, because Sunder Armor does no damage. So you can have a macro that like Sunder Armor stop attack, and you could build Sunder Armor threat on sheeps, for example.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
Something you can do. I mean, you can do that in Classic right now as well, right? But yeah, this is basically just like you're never Sunder Arming anything except for in that scenario. That's the only scenario where you use Sunder Armor. Every other scenario is just Devastate. It's just strictly better everywhere.
Gotcha. Taking a look at some of these other talents too. Second Wind is new and pretty impactful, at least on the PvP side thing. Ozzy, like how, Second Wind, I'll read it. Whenever you are struck by a stun or immobilize effect, you will gain 10 rage. Well, it looks like it's 20. When it's fully ranked up, and 10% of your total health over 10 seconds. Is this really an important talent for you on the PvP side of things?
Yeah, it's pretty good, especially when you're playing classes like rogues who are stunning you all the time, or even actually a mage. So if the mage gets a frostbite or something for a blizzard, you actually regen off that as well, and you just get quite a lot of health back from quite a few classes. I think that's, if you're playing Warrior Druid, it's definitely a talent you want to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, you're sitting in a ton of immobilizes as a warrior, so that's got to be procking quite a bit. I saw you play this sick build, bro, when you went double DPS with Rogue, and you went Last Stand and, your Battle Master, and the second one was just pumping you, man. That was so fun to watch. I don't know if it's a real build or not, but yeah, that was pretty hype. Let's see here. So another skill that comes to mind is Intervene. This is kind of like an intercept and D stance. And you can make sick plays with it. I'll try to pull it up on the DB. Are there PvE applications too? Let's talk about Intervene for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like an additional mobility thing. It's very strong. Like you can always, it's an extra thing to get somewhere you need to go. It's basically just intercept in combat, but to a friendly target. Obviously, it doesn't stun them. The usual application of this is just to get somewhere faster. It also has a functionality where it redirects an auto attack or a ranged attack from the target to you. So, say somebody pulls threat, you can always intervene and they'll survive a hit. Or you can intervene the other tank if they're low health or something, and they can survive until they get healed. Or it's mostly used for somebody pulls threat and you intervene to them and taunt the mob during the intervene so that they don't die, right? And it just has the added functionality as well as it eats the one hit as well, which I'm sure Azzy knows about. For you can always intervene and get like kidney shots and stuff off your healer.
Yeah.
Or when Azzy says "Veen the blind," right? He always gets so excited with that. It's pretty sick, though. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's much more like required in PvP than PvE. Like in PvP, it's like games are won and lost through either using your blind too early and it's on cooldown for some reason, or just vening too early or too late. Like games are won and lost on intervening PvP. Like it's really, really big.
Yeah, definitely.
Really huge.
It's very like minor application in PvE. It's more just like an additional functionality you have there versus like PvP. It's massive. It's one of your main gains from Classic to TBC.
It's one of those really important gap closers. When I watch you play, Ozzy, it looks like you're just like ping-ponging around like crazy to your teammate, to the enemy. It's this constant like ebb and flow of just like just charging, intercept, intervene. Does it share cooldown with intercept?
No, it doesn't. No.
Wow. So you have 3 independent gap closers. That's nasty.
It also is their mobility too.
Yeah.
That's how they get. That's why they have they say there's lack of mobility as a warrior, but they have those.
But you use the intervene to your advantage sometimes. So if the druid is actually like on the target with a clone, for example, then I'll actually intervene my druid so I'm on top of the target, and then I still got the intercept instead, like in case he gets away. So I'm making the most of the intervene. Like you can actually use it offensively sometimes in that sense to like get a good position on someone.
I see. Yeah, so that's nice. Another one, warriors still for the most part looks like they get dunked on by frost mages, but another sort of weakness or thing that felt really bad in Classic is no spell reflection. Now we're living with spell reflection, which basically 10-second cooldown, you reflect the next spell cast on you. I've had a hard time because I'm a new warrior. I've been trying to learn it as well, getting value out of this. I feel like I never have enough rage for it when I swap. When I use it. I mean, how good is spell reflect in your mind, Ozzy?
It's pretty good, yeah. But like, I think the more you play warrior, the more you learn when it's good and when it's not good. So if a druid's going to clone you, sometimes I'll just let him clone me because I've got like 90 rage, and I think, right, when I get out of this clone, I'm going to do so much pressure. It's actually worth not reflecting every now and then. And if you save up rage in battle stance and you reflect, that won't actually take all of your rage. Unlike if you're in berserker stance and you reflect, for example. So there are like little ways around it, so you can just keep your rage a bit more when you reflect and stuff. Like little things like that can help sometimes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a good point and worth mentioning that you can spell reflect in battle stance or defensive stance. It's not just a defensive thing only.
Yeah. So if I know I might have to reflect soon, I might even go battle stance early, so then I can reflect, and then I might have like an extra 10 rage to come back into berserker to intercept, for example.
Gotcha. What about any PvE applications of spell reflection, or is it not too good?
There's some bosses where you can reflect. There's some bosses that are designed around spell reflect. The main focus of TBC PvE tanking wise was designed with warrior tanks in mind. So there are mechanics that spell reflect is designed around, right? And then there's a lot of like trash mobs and stuff where you can reflect and just easily get like a ton of threat, or you reflect some sort of like armor penetration debuff back to the mob and you kill it way faster. There's a lot of like stuff like that was designed around spell reflect. So there's some applications. I would say it's kind of niche still, but it's still useful in some situations.
Gotcha. Okay, chat. If you can think of anything too, just try to. We can always come back to it as well. But if you think of any major things that changed between Warrior and Classic and TBC.
I think another thing that's worth saying is like the dual wield tanking meta is no longer a thing. Like it's not going to be a thing. It's going to mostly be like shield tanking. It's not going to be. You're going to be going deep prot. You want to get down and get devastated. Like it's such a good talent. You get a lot of good stuff along the way now.
But some
but yeah,
people
like
might say, sorry, I'm actually really curious your thoughts on this too. Some people might say Classic's going to be so much easier than the private servers. Maybe you could, do the Fury Defiance dual wield tanking. Do you still think, just trying to visualize it because you've done so many times, you still think it's not going to shift that back in that direction?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there's going to be some stuff where you could definitely dual tank. I mean, there's plenty of things I could think of, especially on like the tier 4 Karazhan stuff, especially where you could probably just Fury tank it. It's not going to be like crazy. Have a shield ready if you drop low, stuff like that. But I think in general the meta is going to be a prot warrior with the shield. Like the damage on these private servers are buffed, yeah. So like maybe I'm, super off, but I don't think I am. Like some of these bosses, like especially in Sunwall, and Crix can attest to this as well. Like your tanks just get destroyed on. And they're buffed a bit on these private servers, but they're not like super buffed. Maybe they're like 10-15% higher than retail. But it's still at a point where it's your tank needs to be tanking things with the shield, and you need to be defensive about it as well.
Gotcha.
I also don't know how good Shield Slam is threat-wise in Classic, but in TBC it's like really good. I think it's probably a bit better in TBC, but it's like your main threat ability, Shield Slam, which obviously requires a shield.
There you go. There it is. That's a big piece of it for sure. So yeah, some people. I think. How do you feel about that, Shed? Are you happy that dual wield tanking is done? You upset by it? Get some feedback there. Another thing that I just noticed too is sweeping strikes has shifted over from arms to fury. That probably has quite a few implications. I noticed some warriors take sweeping strikes in PvP, Ozzy, but it looks like you wouldn't be able to get endless rage if you did that.
No.
What's your take on sweeping strikes and move being shifted?
No, you'd have to typically you'd play with a shaman if you take sweeping strikes, and then a little bit further down in the talent tree there's flurry, and I think you go 2 into flurry as well, and on the right there's another one as well. I think it's called weapon
thing,
something.
Right?
Oh, weapon mastery.
Weapon mastery, that's it. Yeah, and disarm effects are halved, so you haven't got to worry about weapon chain ever when you play warrior shaman, because you're pretty much going to have that always.
But are you?
And one thing as well, when you use sweeping strikes in TBC, I'm pretty sure you can use it in Berserker stance and it's fine. But in Classic, you've got to use it in battle stance, I'm pretty sure. I found that out earlier today.
Yep, you do have to use it in battle stance, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, so that is like a slight thing which is different.
Very nice. But so then you wouldn't get endless rage, so you would probably have more. You'd have to manage your rage a bit better, probably.
Well, you get the Wind Fury as well, so that's going to proc an extra hit, so you're going to get quite a lot of rage from that. And if someone's hitting you on top of that, then you're going to have a fair bit of rage.
Gotcha. And then I guess the other thing that I'm noticing, just that we would want to point out, some people might be interested in this, is this talent Iron Will. This used to be in protection in Classic. This is the 15% stun resist, so this is pretty huge.
Used to be 25% as well, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty good, yeah.
I forgot. Was it 25?
I think it was 25 in Classic. Maybe I'm mixing it up with the Orc ratio. The Orc ratio used to be stronger in Classic as well.
I think it was 15 in Classic as well, but it was in Prot, so they moved it over to Arms, and this is pretty nice, right? Because, I mean, like, they did nerf the Orc ratio a bit. There's a few things to consider here, but, if you're an Orc and you're just standard PvP spec, with your 15% plus another 15% plus maybe the meta gem and stuff like that, you're looking at 40+% stun resistance and stuff. I think this is probably a buff for PvP warriors.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it's really, really good. You notice it as well when you play an Orc warrior, how much you actually resist. Like, you actually really notice it.
That kind of goes back on what As you said earlier as well about intervene, right? You can lose a game or you can win a game as well, like straight off intervening a kidney shot or intervening a blind or something like that, right? So that could kind of be the same thing where, like, if you have really high pressure and then you resist a stun and the rogue just dies because you didn't get a stun off, you could just, like, win a game right away or something.
Yeah, he's right.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we covered just some of the main broad strokes changes. Back over to our slides here. So we can talk about racials and faction balance. Again, this is we won't have to spend too much time on this. We're so lucky to have such big, not to so much low hanging. Yes, but Abide, do you have any TLDR thoughts on racials? As a warrior, maybe on the tanking side or the DPS side in PvE.
I mean, in TBC, it's like all about Horde. It's kind of a swap from Classic, where you don't have paladins on the Horde side. You have everything in TBC. You have shamans and paladins, so the Horde ratios are just super strong. So Horde is like the best race, or the best faction rather. Tauren's like kind of the meta. It's just 5% health, and it scales with your gear. So it's an in-game gear, 5% health from Tauren. It's like 2,000 more health. It's a huge amount. For DPS, it's like Orc. Basically, Orc's just so broken for like 3 expansions until they finally decide to nerf it. It's just the best DPS spec, or race rather. But for Classic, you might not need the Tauren health, so maybe you can go something like Troll for a little more threat, or Orc if you're PvPing on the side or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about on the Alliance side? That's probably the more interesting. The Horde ones are almost a little more cookie cutter. I mean, I think it's really interesting that you said Tauren.
Yeah.
Also, people are actually choosing races and specs, not for just maximizing damage anymore. Genuine prioritizing survival stuff.
I mean, the 5% health is huge on Tauren. Like, it's really underrated, even for like PvP. Warstomp is actually like an amazing spell as well. It's really kind of overpowered, to be honest. But if I was an Alliance Warrior, I'd go Human 99 times out of 100. Maybe Dwarf, just a meme, because it's kind of, looks good the best, I think. But Alliance Warrior is just, it's free expertise. Like, it's just free stats, basically. There's nothing else you can really get as Alliance. I mean, it's all kind of memey. And obviously, like, Gnome is the best for PvP, but...
Yeah. I mean, is it such a big deal that, like, could you main tank as a Gnome Warrior? Like,
yeah, you could do anything. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I mean, on the PvP side, just to piggyback off what you're saying, Ozzy, you were predicting that Tauren for the Horde might be the best race for Warrior, even more so than the Insane Stun Resist, possibly Leeway. So like that immediately in my mind, I'm thinking, man, if you go Tauren Warrior for TBC, you're set for PvP and PvE. Maybe for 2 seconds you could just tell why you think the Leeway is so important for a Warrior.
Yeah, I actually think Tauren could be really, really good, because if the Leeway actually stays in TBC, I think there could be moments where you're chasing the target around the pillar, and you could either proc Mace Stun, or even if you've got Storm Herald, you could actually proc that stun as well. And I think that could actually win you games, to be honest. Like, if it actually works like it does in Classic, I think it'd be really, really good. I think Orc will still be like one of the best as well, but I think Tauren could actually have its day in TBC Classic.
Interesting. Do you think? Again, this is like just shooting from the hip here, Ozzy. I mean, there's so much complexity to PvP, but would it be better than Gnome? I was talking to Caitlin the Priest. We were running some TVs the other day, and he said climbing on in Arena is less about how strong you are versus certain matchups. It's more about like reducing your shitty matchups. And like, do you think you're overall looking better against stuff as a Tauren, or do you still think Gnome is master rate? Essentially, if Leeway works the same way.
I think Gnome, it's a hard one, man. It's hard to say until I've actually tested it, but I think Gnome is always going to be really, really good, without a doubt. But the only thing which makes me doubt Gnome slightly is the fact that it's going to be a 33% chance to resist on the racial. And I've actually played on TBC servers where you've literally hit 2 racials and they resist twice in a row. So the racials actually haven't done anything for you. And that's the only thing which gives me doubt in my mind about Gnome. I'm still going to make one anyway and play one. But that's the only thing which makes me think, okay, Tauren could actually, maybe in some situations, actually be better than the Gnome. It feels weird to say it. It feels really weird to say it, but it could be.
So the Gnome racial just inherently has its own little resist and hit table where it's always a 33% chance to not work?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure in Classic it's actually got a cast time, whereas in TBC it's instant and it's just got a third of a chance to resist.
Yeah, that's one thing that's I'm glad you guys brought it up, but I was going to say this as well. Like, a lot of people are playing on that Endless Arena server, right? But Endless has a lot of quality of life changes, so they've removed that Gnome resistance chance on the racial for the PvP sake of things, right?
Yeah.
And then the hitboxes as well. Like you're talking about the Leeway on Taurens, the hitboxes on Endless are all the same. So like a Tauren might look bigger than a Gnome, but their hitbox is exactly the same as the Gnome.
Exactly.
So, that's one thing I wanted to bring up and just ask you about, Azu, because Taurens are actually really good. Because, like, on Blade's Edge Arena, you can hit through almost the entire pillar. You can hit through, like, 3/4 of it. So you can always like basically it's really hard to escape a Tauren warrior and pillar hump, which is like the meta in the arenas, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if you can proc a stun off it as well, that could be huge. That could be
you
so
just
big.
like, can't escape basically.
The only thing which there is negatives to everything, and the only thing which makes me think it could be bad is if there's a rogue, like you're just about to get the poisons off, and a rogue from Africa just gets the poison on you, and then you keep 5 points. Yeah, that could be really rough.
Yeah, I mean
But,
it's upside and down. It's double-edged sword, right? Like you get hit by AoEs a lot easier. You get hit. You can be hit from further away, but you can also hit. I don't know. I think it's like pretty comparable, like you said, to Orc. I mean, it's at the end, it's going to come down to like what the population is playing, and if you're countering that or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good to know from your perspective, Abide, because most people probably are not going to have multiple of the same class, and like if you want a PvP and PvE, you can still like main tank or do whatever as a gnome. It's not like GG, like you have to be human if you're going to play Alliance. So anyway, we can go past that now. All right, let's talk about the specs. Let's talk about the state of the specs. So, and there's a lot of variations, different builds and stuff like that. Maybe we'll start with Fury. This is a hard-hitting one. People say Fury and TBC Classic is going to be dog shit. It's going to be potentially the worst spec in the entire game. They have the least utility out of any spec in the entire game. If you're going to go a DPS warrior, you're going to go arms. I don't know if this is triggering you or if you agree with this. I'm not sure. But let's kick it off with the Bide. Your take on Fury, PvE. Is there anything good about it?
I mean, in general, so on private servers, like it's kind of two different things, right? On private servers, like all this stuff gets buffed. So melee, in general, are just typically weaker because of private servers. So that won't really be as much of a factor on Classic. But in general, like melee are always just worse than range until like later, like Mop or Kata, right? But like, why have a melee who can't DPS on certain mechanics versus a range that can DPS them all the time, right? Like 100% uptime. There's always like stuff on the ground you can't go near, or you have to, this boss, kills anyone that gets in melee range, or this boss has a consecrate on the ground, or whatever type of stuff like that, right? Like a melee can't DPS, but a range can just sit there and DPS. I don't think I think Warrior kind of gets a bad rap. It's kind of it's not as bad as people meme about. It's kind of like the private server thing. Like it's bad because everything's buffed. Like if content's super buffed, right, then you're in those phases for longer where melee can't DPS, so then melee become worse because they have less uptime, right? Because the fight lasts longer. So that won't be as much of a concern on Classic, but in general, like it's just range is better than melee because they have full uptime. But I mean, Fury's really strong once you get geared up. Melee in general are just weak at the start because they're weapon reliant, right? Versus you're just spell power reliant as a caster. Your weapon doesn't matter, but you need like constantly to upkeep your weapons as melee. And early on, you don't really have that much option. So you're weak early on, and once you get to like around like tier 6, you start picking up. And Warrior will be pretty good around then. It kind of depends on what the meta is. Like if the meta is around like speed clearing, you might see a lot of Warrior comps if it's Classic rolled to TBC, because a lot of people won't reroll, right? So you'll have a lot of like cleave comps and Warriors cleaving stuff down, which will be pretty strong. It's not going to be bad, but it's just not like, a Warlock can just press one AoE and AoE everything versus a Warrior where we're winning 4 mobs and pulling threat and dying because they're in melee range.
Yeah,
so it's not as bad as it is on private servers. It'll see play. I think a lot of people won't re-roll from Classic, so you'll probably have on average like 2 Warriors per guild or something. Fury, I mean, rather. But yeah, I mean, if you want a guaranteed raid spot, I would say learn arms, and if your guild doesn't have an arms warrior, you can be arms and you'll be on like every single boss every time.
So the reason why you would choose arms, I think, is this right here. You can see it kind of on the talent. See that little fist chat, that 0 out of 2? It gives 4% increase to physical damage, so that's going to really help your hunters and stuff like that. I'm curious, though, and it's going to probably change throughout the different phases and tiers of content and stuff. Like paper doll dummy just standing behind a dummy. Would a Fury warrior pump harder than an arms warrior, just for whatever that's worth to you? Sorry, you cut out there for a second. He might have DC'd or something, possibly, too. Well, maybe... there is. Yeah, now you're good now, yep.
Yeah, I mean, a Fury is a DPS spec. Like, it's going to be arms. Arms is like a support spec, right? So it should lose to Fury.
Okay.
But, I mean, arms brings utility. That's what it is, right? It's not there for DPSing. It's not like they do bad damage. You have to play properly. There's a lot of things you have to min-max, and like you have to watch your swing timer, stuff like that. Versus Fury, you just kind of push the buttons when they come off cooldown. But the arms is there for utility and for buffing the raid. Like if you look at all the physical damage and you take 4% of the damage they dealt and gave it to the arms, because that's what he brings, right? 4% physical, then the arms is going to be the Fury for sure.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I guess it's just cool to know that Fury at least has some redeeming aspect in that sense that, like, maybe if you're just soloing or you're doing a dungeon or something, you'll do more damage than arms. And
yeah, like if you want to be Fury for sure for like DPS, pure DPS. But like arms is going to be, I think arms is like almost every single raid is going to have one arms guaranteed. And it's going to be like a core spot. You need to be there for like every raid. You're going to be in for every boss type of thing. Versus Fury, it's like, okay, well, this boss isn't good for melee, or this boss, we want to progress with a hunter instead of you, or something like that, right? So we'll bring that guy instead, and we'll bring you for the farm. I don't know. Like Fury's not going to be that bad, but like arms isn't there for DPS. It's just there for like, it brings so much utility, right? Like it has Sunder Armors. It can go Sunder Armor, something that like maybe the Druid's tanking on the side, or it can Thunderclap and Demo Shout, and it can, apply all the debuffs and disarms and stuff like that. Like the Fury can as well, but it's like, it's there to DPS, and if it's doing that, it's like, it's not bringing utility while doing bad damage. Like,
gotcha. The other kind of final question on this too, a lot of people might be wondering this in the chat, how come you don't dual wield anymore? Like I'm looking up Fury builds and I'm seeing two-handed Fury builds, and then arms you're using a two-hander. Is it just straight up the weapon progression isn't there for one hand? Is it like, or maybe do you have an opinion on that?
I'm not sure where you saw two-handed Fury. I mean, that's like a leveling thing you can do in TBC.
Oh, so it is.
Other than that, you're dual wielding for Fury for sure.
My bad. Hey, there we go. Yeah, okay. So you do.
For arms, you two-handed most of the time, just because it's you get a bunch of two-handed talents, and your abilities are slow hitting and are based on weapon damage. So you want the highest weapon damage you can get, which is from a two-hander, right? You can always dual wield and do some Mimi specs. There's some odd specs you can do that kind of go like mix between the two trees, but yeah, like typically arms is two-hander, Fury's dual wield.
Gotcha.
One thing I'd like to add though, when I done PvE on, I used to have Mortal Strike instead of Bloodthirst with a two-hander. I used to have Storm Herald, and I think Mortal Strike was so good because it scales with weapon damage. So I done much more damage with Mortal Strike instead of Bloodthirst with a two-hander.
Yeah, Bloodthirst is just attack power scaling only, so it doesn't scale with weapons. It just scales with your gear, but not as hard, right? Because the Storm Strike or the Mortal Strike scales off weapon damage directly versus just attack power on the Bloodthirst.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, so we went over Fury a bit and kind of where it is. I guess final thing, like, are you taking? Like it seemed like you would take a Fury under certain situations. Is it just because like there's no, that you don't have enough players and you would just take a Fury Warrior, or maybe in the later stages of the game?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can always recruit one. Obviously, I mean, I think the thing like on TBC private servers, and it's going to be even worse on Classic because it's rolling from vanilla to TBC, right? But there's always an overabundance of Fury Warriors and Rogues looking for guilds, like. Because you typically only want 1 or 0 of those classes, so there's always excess of those classes. So like if you ever like need a raid spot, you can you need someone in the guild, like you're 24 people or something. You can always. I'm sure it'll be super easy to be able to recruit one. But I mean, that being said, personally, if I make a guild on TBC Classic, I'm not taking a Fury Warrior. Like it's a pure DPS class that brings no utility, that doesn't even do like that great a DPS until the late game, and it's not even like that. Like it's like melee versus range for me. It's just like, why take a class that doesn't have 100% uptime versus a class that has 100% uptime?
What you usually see people doing on the servers, which what I'll probably do, is the Fury Warriors that want to be Fury are something else. Like they're a Shadow Priest or they're a Warlock, and then you're a Hunter or whatever. And then when you just have that alt, let's get passively geared up on non-prog raids, right? And then when T6 comes, you hard swap to your Fury. We recruit another Warlock or a Hunter, since those are
that's definitely the way to go about it, in my opinion. I mean, I think some people will still play it obviously through, but I think that's like the best way to do it, because you're kind of like dead weight until late tier 5, early tier 6. There's really not a lot of cleave fights as well, right? And that's where Warriors specializes. There's only a few fights where you can just full cleave out on ads, right? So it's kind of just bad overall.
Ozzy, have you ever seen anybody attempt to play Fury in PvP, or is it a complete non-starter?
It's just a no-go, I think. I don't think anyone's really played it actually wanting to do anything good. Like, maybe someone came out of a raid and was like, okay, I might just do some PvP because I CBA to respec. But the Mortar Strike is way too big to not get, basically. You just lose all your pressure. They'll just heal through it.
Gotcha. All right, let's talk about protection then. So the Protection Warrior, really curious, because would you consider yourself mainly a tank?
Or... yeah, I mean, I played tank mostly for most of the time on the servers, all the different tanks, but mostly Prot Warrior.
Where do you see Warriors in the tanking meta?
I mean, like I said, I don't think the damage is going to be like that much different from private servers. The earlier you go in the content, the less it'll be buffed. Like, you know, you might see like Mag Theridon in tier 4 does like double damage on private servers, versus you know, like a tier 6 boss might only do like 30% more damage because the base damage is so high that they can't double it, right? Or you just go one shot. So like early on, probably won't need like Warrior's really good at being like. It's good at like being survivable and having good threat. Like it's the most survivable tank out of all the tanks for sure. Not just because it has cooldowns, but just like the way it gears, the scaling of its gear, all that stuff. It's the most survivable out of all the tanks. And then you add on the cooldowns like that. The other tanks just don't have any cooldowns, right? And just makes Warrior like, you know, it's just the best tank for surviving. So like maybe early progression you don't want one. If depending on how long the content's out, maybe farming the content, you know, you might not want the Warrior to tank, but I mean, personally for me, I think the Prot Warrior is going to be the best tank for all the content. Like
for all the content, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people say like, you know, you'll swap to a Druid for farming, or Prot Paladin will be the best tank. I mean, at the end of the day, like you'll be able to main tank everything with any tank. Like you could be a Druid tank and main tank everything, or a Prot Paladin and main tank everything. It might not be as easy. You might have some bumps on the road, but you can do it for sure.
You hear this. You heard this thrown around a lot, but I don't know if it's necessarily true or not. I'm just kind of regurgitating it. People say that in Sunwell and beyond, or maybe even tier 6 and beyond. I think it's Sunwell though, because there's something about the nature of Sunwell where Druids become like these untouchable tanking monsters. Like they have so much dodge, and they really like turn on and they scale the best out of all the tanks. Do you think that's true, or do you? Is there more to it?
I mean, Druids only have dodge, right? So it's kind of weird to say that they have a lot of dodge. It's like, yeah, of course, that's all they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sunwell has a few things that I think this is probably what you're mentioning, is people talking about. On a lot of Sunwell bosses, they disabled crushing blows. So, like, the second boss can't crush. The third boss can't crush. I think that's about it. Like, the first boss, there's 2 halves to it. The first half can't crush. So Druids, that's like Druid tank's biggest weakness, is they get crushed, which is 150% damage of a normal hit, because you just can't get crush cap with only dodge.
Mm-hmm.
So Druids kind of are slightly better in that raid because they can't be crushed, but there's plenty of other bosses that have crush disabled as well, and people don't seem to mention that. But Sunwell also has a buff that makes it so you dodge 20% less, because they basically just like didn't balance the game well. There's no diminishing returns in TBC, so you can have agility. You could stack avoidance up and get 100% avoidance and never get hit, right? Like there's multiple videos of rogues tanking Illidan or whatever boss, and Druids are unhittable, stuff like that.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. That's crazy. You could get 100% avoidance.
Yeah, you need to get to like 102.4% total like dodge, parry, miss, and you can literally like never be hit. There's videos of like rogue tanking 5-man Gruul's Lair and rogue tanking Illidan and Mother and all that stuff. You can't do it in Sunwell because they made an aura for that, right? Like that's why it's like the game was just not finished being balanced, so they had to make a thing to kind of balance it out a little bit in the in-game content to make it easy. So if you went into these raids, like the aura makes it so that you get hit 5% more of the time, and you dodge 20% less, right? So it's just like something they try to do to balance tanks out.
Gotcha.
They have to do it dodge. It has to be dodge because Druids obviously can't parry, right, or block. So they had to put it all on dodge. So I would say I mean, druids are a strong tank overall. Like, if I was to have a tanking comp or make a tanking team for TBC, I would have a mix of one of each tank. They're all strong in their own functionality. They're all good at their own certain bosses. Like, I would have a druid tank some bosses, a paladin would take some bosses, but I mean, still overall, like, the warrior's the tankiest for sure. I mean, no matter what people say, like, warriors always take less damage than druids. Like, just you have so much more mitigation, even if you're not counting for.
Gotcha.
He's going through a tunnel.
It's all good.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot. You explained it in such a simple like way. It's really nice, man. So this is a quick aside too. It kind of has nothing to do with what you were talking about, but it sort of relates because you've been in a raid leading position. You've clearly cleared the content 9 bajillion times. Are there world buffs in TBC? People say that they kind of do exist. People might get sweaty with them. The world buff meta may be like still there. Like there are a couple. I don't even know exactly what they all are. These world buffs that they're talking about. What's your take on that, real quick?
There are some world buffs. There's a few like really niche ones. There's one. So there's like a quest chain in one of the zones, and at the end of the super long quest chain, you get a AOE buff in the zone for completing it. But like that's like a one-time thing kind of thing, unless you want to level alts every time, right? It's super unreliable. It's not something you're gonna do. Like you have to level a new character every single time and do the whole quest chain to get this buff. But it is a thing there.
What is
I think
that, though?
sunflowers. I forget what it's called, the buff itself, because I've never done it because it's just too try hard. But it's a quest called it's something from the Great Earth Mother. It's like a whole quest chain. Like at the end of the day, like it's something you might see like the super sweaters do when they're like trying to put a parse up, but it's not something you're gonna do at all. Like it's nothing. You're not gonna like get. It's not like a Nixie head where you have to go get this. It's like it's not gonna be a real reality.
Gotcha. And what about that stuff from like the
I think,
Zanger Marsh guys and stuff? No one really gets that. You know those like trees that give you.
Well, those only work in the zone, but they're really minor. You could get them again. I think it might be one of those things. It kind of depends on what the meta is, right? Like if the meta is like boss speed kills, people will probably try hard and get those as well. But also like if it's the whole raid speed clear, right? Like it is in classic. You'll see people get them before the raid for sure, but you're not going to go out and teleport out and get it every time. You might get it on progression, but it's not something it's something that's like you might go there before the raid and pick it up, but it's not required definitely. But a lot of people like to min max, so that's probably something people pick up.
Gotcha.
I mean, personally, I've never done it because on private servers everything's buff, so you wipe a lot, so it's kind of like not useful when you go in there and wipe 4 times in a row, right?
So kind of even if these things do exist in TBC, they don't move the needle as much too. So it's like you.
That's one major thing as well as in classic. Everything's really overpowered in classic. Like the things are super unbalanced. So the world buffs are a huge factor. Like even like the tank flask, for example. You play classic, so how much HP is the tank flask in classic? 1500?
Something like that. Titans, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I think it gives almost as much health as the Wrath of the Lich King. I think it's 1200 or something, and classic I can't remember, but it's insane. It got nerfed to 400 in TBC.
Wow, crazy.
So like it's just everything's like super unbalanced. You can get like 6,000 health just from world buffs and stuff like you could double your health. Like there's so much crazy stuff like that. But it should be in classic TBC as well, but like if you're level 63, I believe, and you don't get world buffs anymore. You can't get world buffs at level 60 past level 63.
Gotcha.
But I think Songflowers still work. I'm pretty sure. And there's another one as well from like if somebody kills Kel'Thuzad, he drops a necklace, like a quest item, and if you turn that in chat Wrath, it gives a buff out, and it's kind of like a Nixio's head. It's basically the same functionality as the Nixio's head. So you might see people try and get that, but I don't think that's really like it's not going to be as big of a deal because again, like people are going to be wiping this content as well. It's not like classic where you're going to go and just one shot everything. You probably will early on, but you're not going to do that later. It's not going to be useful.
Yeah, and to kill Kel'Thuzad, even in TBC, like it's not something you can just go solo. Like you'd have to actually get a raid in there and actually, I assume, right? Like you can't just. I know warlocks need like Black Book, and they like beg their guild to go back into BWL. Like a warlock can't just.
Sorry, I meant Kel'Thas and Tempest.
Oh, Kel'Thas. Gotcha. My bad. Kel'Thas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about arms now. We talked about pride.
Oh, real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, are you gonna go over gearing for each one of these? Because I have a question from chat about the tank warrior trinkets. How do you do your pre-raid trinkets for T4 and what trinket swaps and stuff like that?
I mean, for trinkets, you want to go engineering and just get the stamina trinkets. There's other trinkets as well that you probably will want. There's like hit trinkets from questing that's pretty useful. But yeah, majority of your trinket time is going to be using the engineering trinkets. I think they're 45 stamina each. You can have 2 of them. It's a very high amount of health very early on. You put the 2 of those on, you get Blessings of Kings. It's like 1500 health.
And you pull with it, yeah? Use it.
Yeah. If you go Goblin, you can pull with it. I mean, you should probably go Gnomish just so you can get a Battle Chicken for buffing people's haste. But I mean, you can go Goblin as well. Goblin's pretty good as well. You can get the rocket launchers. The Gnomish one has no use; it's useless. But yeah, you can. If you go Goblin, it has a pull thing. You can pull with it.
Gotcha. Okay, let's talk
you
about.
You said gemming, sorry, or no? Would you say just the trinkets or tricks?
Well, gymming? No, just that. There was just a chat someone else asked about
yeah.
I'm just asking questions as they come. Gymming, yeah, you can go for gymming too if you want. I was always assuming like you can go the survivability route or you go the threat route, right?
I mean, there's no real threat route. You just kind of go stam. You can go like agile is like your second best stat, and I don't really think strength's that great, but you can go strength maybe. I don't think it's good. I think agility's better than strength for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. We did that tanking episode before too, right, Crix? And we got the druid perspective, we got the paladin perspective. Everybody is just gemming stam. It's something to keep in mind, folks, in the chat. Like, you really are kind of a tank in TBC. You get survivability stuff. You're not just going full Zug anymore, which is refreshing.
Yeah, and one thing to think about as well is the more tanky you are, the less healers you need, right? So like if you can kind of all beef up a little bit the raid, maybe you can cut a healer and you squeeze a little more damage out of it because of that.
True, you're not wrong. Ozzy, tell us about arms, man. Like, I mean, this is a PvE. We talked sort of about it already on the PvE side. It is the PvE spec for warriors, and they have that 4% utility. But more interestingly, on the PvP side, like, do you see warriors as an S tier or tier 1 PvP class? Maybe they're stronger in certain seasons. What's your take on the just how strong warriors are in arms?
I think warriors progressively get better like each season. So like season 1, it's really hard for a warrior. They're just really soft, don't really do much damage, and they do struggle quite a lot. But I think season 2 they start getting a bit better though, because they get the Storm Herald, and that kind of gives them a big boost. And then when you get to season 3 and 4, that's probably when you're going to see the warriors strongest, because the Battle Master, the ARP and whatnot, they just have much better survivability. And no, I wouldn't actually call warrior S tier. No, it's not quite on the level as other classes. You can have fun with it, but it's not quite as good as the others.
Interesting. What do you see as the main drawbacks of it if you're playing at that top level?
I think the mobility is quite rough. When you're in combat, all you really have is intercept and intervene. And if your druid's not in a place for you to intervene to get onto your target, then essentially you only really have intercept. So the mobility is probably the worst thing, and the fact they can be CC'd quite a lot.
Just out of curiosity, what would you put, like, if you had to choose a couple S tier classes or one or something, what would you choose in your mind?
Well, I think rogue is the best. I'd say mage, priest, druid, warlock, those kind of classes.
Damn, all those above warrior? Holy shit, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man,
I think hunter and warrior are kind of on like a similar level, I'd say. But yeah, they're not as good as those other classes.
Damn. So if you had to, I know, given everything you said about warriors being soft in season 1 and not having access to the stun herald and all that, what would you roll season 1 if you had to? It seems like you're gonna have to do this, right? Like, at some point.
Yeah, I've got to play warrior anyway. But yeah, I'm just gonna play warrior druid and just try rough it out and just hope I don't get one shotted too hard, man. I just got to stick with it for now.
Gotcha. They do seem like they put a ridiculous amount of damage out, like almost more than rogues, it seems, on Endless at least. Like, it's pretty inspiring, especially if you see Sword Spec Warrior with the Shaman. It's so nasty, the amount of damage they can put out. But yeah, like that requires them to actually be able to attack their target.
Yeah, exactly. Like even though warriors aren't S tier, they do have their moments where when they pop Death Wish and stuff like that, they really can do some damage and they can be a handful. Like in their moments, they are very, very strong, without doubt.
Gotcha.
They're annoying.
They're annoying. Okay.
From a warlock point of view, yeah.
Yeah, and a priest point of view.
Annoying. Yeah. Warrior's pretty good. It's just like the other classes are just so much better comparatively, right? Like Rogue is actually just like super unbalanced.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about kind of the overviews. We can talk about man, there's so much to talk about. We can talk about maybe let's assume it's Fresh Classic at like today, tomorrow, whatever. You know, like you're just you're hitting the ground running, fresh server abide. What's going through your mind, man? Like, what's your strategy? Are you gonna dungeon cleave up? Are you gonna go solo? What like kind of slots in the best with the warrior? You know, what items are you looking for? Big ticket items to pick up ASAP? Is there anything from Classic you're trying to bring into it?
I mean, first thing I'm doing is crying in guild chat, and I'm getting 5 people to carry me the whole time because the warrior's still the worst leveling class. Like,
yeah. So you're probably gonna be in a dungeon then the whole way?
I mean, I would probably try to do world stuff still. A lot of the questing is like a lot better in TBC. It's nerfed experience to level. The quests give a little bit more experience past level 20, I believe it is, and it's 33% less experience to level as well. The big thing as well is that a lot of the elites are non-elites, so you can solo a lot more quests. You can do a lot more quests that don't require groups. So it's not like the end of the world if you group solo. Or if you quest solo, rather. But, I mean, you always ideally want to quest with somebody else because you are just, like, the slowest killing. You know, you have the most downtime. It's still kind of like the same leveling thing as Classic. You want to, like, hamstring kite stuff and, avoid melee swings in between if you can, stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, I would probably quest. And when I got to TBC, I would probably dungeon cleave until, get all the reps up as you're doing dungeons and get to 70 and then go back.
Here's a question: if you wanted to be an arms PvE warrior, right? Like that's your role. You want to get the Storm Herald eventually and all that. Would you go prot to start to organize your own dungeons and stuff, or do you think you're okay to be arms?
I mean, it depends. Like the meta on these private servers at the start of the server is typically AOE farming rep. So it's going to be kind of hard to get in as a DPS. You'll have to, as a DPS warrior, you'll have to look for cleave groups, right? Melee cleave groups. Because there's always going to be melee that can't join these, double warlock mage groups, stuff like that. Your best bet is to always have an off-spec for sure. The tank is probably the most desired role if it's not healer for dungeons. So if you have an off-spec or even just tank gear you can put on as your current spec, like, you'll be able to get into way more dungeons. So I would be on the lookout for prot stuff like that. And, I'd probably, depending on your guild and the needs for that, right? Like, I'd probably be looking more towards prot, most likely.
Prot. And another question, too, is people are going to be living in dungeons, and that's going to be a whole chapter of the game as you do normal dungeons and heroics and stuff. Do you think warrior tanking is they struggle the most in the dungeons? Do you think it's not as bad as people think? Because a lot of people think warrior tanking is horrible in dungeons.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have to hate yourself to want to repeatedly do dungeons as warrior. It's like terrible. It's the worst shit ever.
Holy shit! Why is that? Maybe you can explain why. Why is it?
I mean, it's terrible. Like, I mean, you have one ability that hits 4 targets. That's your AOE. So, when the guy behind you face pulls 4 mobs and then the healer's pre-healing you and the 4 mobs that are coming in front, you pretty much just want to cast Hearthstone and leave. But, I mean, it's a lot of... You have to utilize a lot of your kit, basically, as a warrior in dungeons. Like, it's a lot of stance swapping, and you should be utilizing Whirlwind as prot. Like, you should be thunderclapping and then stancing and doing Whirlwind. It's just extra AoE that you can have, right? It's just something that puts more threat out. It's not like it's bad. It's not like you can't do the dungeons. It's a lot more micromanagement and attention required versus paladin. You go press consecrate and you can go AFK for 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I can go from a warlock perspective. Warriors are the worst tank to have in dungeons, whether it's rep farming, normals, or heroics. Mm-hmm. And from a healer perspective, I don't like healing them compared to the other ones either.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just prefer to heal. They feel, I don't know, maybe it could be the word. They feel squishier. And from a warlock, they just don't hold threat as much, right? You got to wait more. Druid looks like they have a little bit of on a 3-target swipe or whatever the hell it's called, where I can put some damage out there. The warrior, I can't double dot nothing. I can't do damage. I'm not seeding. I'm not doing anything. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what the meta is and what you're trying to get into. Like if you're doing like the spell cleave stuff, like I was saying, like mage double lock or something, the tank doesn't really matter. You're there just to group to lock the mobs up, and then the AoE happens, and you're useless after that. Because they're all perma-slowed by the mage, and they're running to the warlocks, but they're so slow they'll never reach them, right? But you know, you can do everything, no problem. It's just like you're not going to have as much of an easy time with the warrior tank, like Crix, exactly like Crix said. Like you can't AoE stuff down, so everything just kind of takes a little bit longer. It's not like terrible. The upside is that you can kind of chain pull a little bit more, but I mean, Druids is better at that as well. But I mean, it's still good. You could just have to put a lot more attention and stuff into it, and people kind of need to understand that a warrior isn't a paladin, and they can't just like start seeding instantly, or you know, if something gets face pulled or something like that, you need to wait for the tank to pick stuff up. It's not like, oh, I just start putting dots on mob number 12 that I tabbed onto, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is the big problem with warrior. I can imagine it being a warrior tank and how being miserable that is with all these new warlocks not knowing how Seed of Corruption works. Warlocks are dying in classic still to Hellfire, bro. So let alone imagine Seed of Corruption for people who've never used Seed of Corruption, and it's a warrior tank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are still a tank. You're still going to find groups easily. You're still going to still going to be looking for tanks.
I mean,
you're just the last tank pin.
You'll still be fine, right? Like, I mean, the problem becomes like exactly like you said. Like when you start pugging and you start getting people that are doing like their first time, or they don't understand their first time with the warrior tank, or you know, once the sort of AOE farm meta devolves and it goes into normal groups, especially for heroics, people might not understand how to play a dungeon at all because all they've done is like spam seeded with the mage slowing everything, which you're not going to most likely not do in heroics. You can still do that for sure, but the meta will change a bit, right? So like people will kind of be like not understand how to play things properly, right?
Yeah, it's true, man. Like, you know, with these new abilities, you have Devastate. You said Shield Slam is your highest like TPS type thing you can use. You're saying get value from Whirlwind. Maybe you can walk us through the mind of a 200 IQ tank if you're doing dungeons or raids. You know, like imagine you're doing like the Nightmare, like Shattered Halls, Gauntlet. You know, like are you just tab devastating stuff, or maybe just using Shield Slam on cooldown? Just generally speaking, I know there's a lot of nuance to it, but you know.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of target swapping. You have to be aware of your threat on a lot of different mobs. Like typically your rotation will be something like you Shield Slam Skull because it's your highest threat, and then you'll maybe you do like one cleave. You don't really want to cleave too much.
Why is that?
It doesn't have that much threat. Like if you do a heroic strike and then you heroic strike the second mob, it's about, I think it's slightly more rage, but it's way more threat. Like heroic strike threat is super high versus cleave just being it's a little bit of threat, and then it's just weapon damage, right? It's like a little bit of weapon damage, a little bit of base damage, and a little bit of base threat. But like heroic strike has like a massive amount of base threat and a lot more weapon damage, and then it has a lot more base damage as well. So like the threat it does is way higher. So like ideally you don't want to cleave like crazy because you burn through rage really quick as well. So it's a lot more rage per attack. But like you want to like Shield Slam Skull, and then you want to put some Devastates on X. You know, cycle through, put some Devastates around. Depending on the number of mobs you're tanking, you need to be like Thunderclapping and cooldown. I like to go defense or Berserker stance, do like a Whirlwind, put Berserker rage up so I get more rage, like swap back, Thunderclap again, throw out another, you know, Devastate or Revenge. Revenge is really good as well. Like you just kind of do, you need to like spread your damage out pretty evenly while keeping good threat on Skull. Because like your best friend is a warrior tank is a shaman healer, because Earth Shield it gives you threat every time it heals. So like that saves you a lot of like headache on AoE pulls. But yeah, it's a lot of like micromanaging your threat on multiple targets. One of your really good friends, or one of your best friends as a warrior, is consumables. Like immolation pots are huge for AoE tanking. For example, sapper charges, like even the Molten Core engineering shield, like stuff like that is massive. Like it makes your life 10 times easier.
You said sappers. You're still using sappers in TBC.
Yeah, there's a new version of it. It's called like Super Sapper Charge. But even if like the vanilla version of it, I think it does like 1500 damage or something. The TBC version. But I mean, stuff like that. Like you pop one of those, and you never have to worry about the healer pulling threat. You know, if the warlock wants to seed and pull threat instantly, you can never prevent that basically. But you know, you can always your main priority first of all is like not letting the healer die. If the healer dies, it's 9 times out of 10 your fault, right? So if a DPS dies, it's 9 times out of 10 his fault. But like that's what you need to be focusing on, is like having a good amount of threat on everything so that you don't lose it to the healers, and then kind of building on Skull and X. And typically after like X dies, you should be able to AoE if you keep kind of putting Thunderclaps and Whirlwind out.
Gotcha. And let's just assume it's just a single target. You're fighting a boss. You're just a patchwork style fight, tanking it away from the raid, or you don't have to worry about because it gets a little messy, right? You're thinking about doing this to X, this to Skull, this to Condom, or whatever. Single target. Are you just shield slam on cooldown, devastate up to 5? What does the rotation look like on just the single target for tank?
It's Shield Slam's Prile, Revenge is second Prile, and then it's Heroic Strike and Devastate are about even. Depending on what you have in the raid, you probably want to Devastate first, like 5 Devastates first. I would still Shield Slam always on cooldown. But you want to, you want to get the debuff, the Sunder Armor debuff up as soon as possible. But typically you're going to have a rogue doing Exposed Armor. But on Trash Bombs, for example, I prioritize getting 5 Sunders up, like right away, just so they die faster, right? But like on a boss, you basically go Shield Slam, Revenge, Devastate, and then the cycle just repeats.
Is Exposed Armor better than Sunder?
It's more armor penetration. I think it's 475 more armor penetration. So it's just like, if you have 10 physical DPS, you're giving the raid like almost 5,000 armor penetration. Like it's definitely better. It reduces your threat a bit, this Prot Warrior, but it's still worth it. Like it's worth the raid gaming DPS.
What about on a boss? Like, are you like on a boss that's hitting super hard? Do you even bother with Whirlwind, or not worth it? That's kind of
no. Like that's basically just like a heroic thing only. Like you need to put some damage out on mobs, and if your only ability is Thunderclap, like. If you do a Whirlwind, even if it's reduced, it's because Berserker Stance has innate 20% threat reduction, right? So even if you're getting some reduced damage on, or reduced threat on the damage, it's still better than nothing because you have nothing else in your kit.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like the Heroic Strike is kind of the thing in TBC or in Classic, right? Like it's all about Heroic Strike. It's kind of the same thing. Like. If rage is not an issue, you never want a white hit. You want a heroic strike every single time. I think Devastate is slightly more threat than heroic strike, if I remember correctly. I haven't done the math on it in a little bit, but basically, yeah, you want a heroic strike. It's a lot of like micromanaging your rage and knowing like when you're going to get hit and what type of rage you have coming in. So if you're out of rage and you have shield slam soon, you don't want a heroic strike, right? Because then you lose that white hit rage. So it's a lot of like looking at that and paying attention.
What about like shield block? Are you using that on cooldown? It's
yeah, that's you have to or you get crushed.
Okay, so shield block on CD.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, you could always troll it up and not shield block and get crushed for rage, which probably is actually going to be a big thing in Classic, especially early on.
Gotcha. So you mentioned engineering. Engineering seems really good. The more of these deep dives we do, like, have you noticed that, Crix? Every class that we bring on, like when we especially when we talk about fresh and stuff, I feel like they're all going leatherworking engineering for some reason. And then you're talking about super sapper charges. I heard there's a bomb that silences for 5 seconds and stuff too. It seems like
I believe that's in Classic, isn't it? It's called, I think it's Arcanite Bomb or something.
Yeah, no, that's TBC. We don't have Arcanite in Classic, but I know it replaces the drums cooldown, but I mean 5 second silence and everything seems insane. I was wondering, I mean, if you just chain those into each other, there's no diminishing return on silence, right? Couldn't you just like perma silence anything with your raid? Sorry about my dogs.
Yeah, I mean, our engineering is still really good. It's got, I think some classes like in Prot Warrior, I would probably almost always go engineering. The bombs are very useful as well. Like you said, like there's some. It doesn't work on bosses. Most bosses are immune to everything, right? But there's a lot of trash bowls where you can throw those out. Like another thing that's similar is the Blood Elf Racial. Is an Arcane Torrent. It's like an AoE silence for 2 seconds, and you use that pretty frequently on a lot of trash packs where you want to interrupt them or just kind of stop them from casting for a second or whatever type of deal, right? So the bombs are kind of like a good replacement for that. There's a lot of like really cool tools in there. Like there's different bombs that freeze mobs, there's bombs that incapacitate mobs. There's a lot of different things in the engineering kit that make it like extremely useful. I think as a warrior tank, it's like your number one profession. You pretty much want to have engineering for sure. Like the goggles are really good. All the utility it gets from it. Like I'd be so much worse off without having sabotages for those. Like when the guy's face pulled in the dungeon, like a sabotage saves your life.
So are you going to go leatherworking engineering?
Yeah, that'd be what I would do for sure.
Okay. Gotcha.
Leatherworking is just so strong in TBC. It's kind of hard to.
Another little thing too. I know it's going back to the racials for a second, but Crix and I were doing this tanky stuff, and we weren't 100% sure. Like, you know how the orcs have the axe expertise. Apparently, that can affect weapon progression and stuff too. Like if you're an orc warrior, you can use the Thrallmar Exalted Axe instead of King's Defender and stuff like that. I mean, is this is that a thing for you? And I know you mentioned Tauren. That seems like a nice little bonus.
Yeah, I've been orc before as well. Yeah, I mean, there's some weapons like in the very end game, if you're orc versus like Tauren or human or something, your bis weapon changes. But the thing is, there's very few axes that are tanking weapons. There's only 3 that I can think of. There's probably more, and I'm just not remembering because they're really not good. Like there's only like 3 ones that you could probably ever use, and one of them's like you mentioned, the reputation one from Thrallmar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just the equivalent. Like the horde one is an axe, and I think the alliance one's a sword. There's one from like ZA, but that's kind of like a catch-up weapon. You should ideally already have a tank weapon by that point. And then there's one from Black Temple. The Black Temple one's the one that, like, that's your bis weapon if you're orc. But other than that, like, the axes are kind of just you can replace it pretty quickly, and it's not like really good anywhere except for in game. But yeah, it really does affect your weapon progression. You'll change different weapons based on that, if you have the ratio or not.
Gotcha. Before I forget to, I know this is another random little tangent thing, but I was really curious to ask this of Ozzy. So, Blood Fury, it mortal strikes you pretty much, right? And like you talked in the past, Ozzy, how that can actually be beneficial, and it can help drop wound poison stacks. So first question on that is like, is that literally how that works? You use Blood Fury, you get the debuff. As soon as that debuff drops, all the wound poison goes away, or is it as soon as you activate Blood Fury, all the wound poison is gone immediately?
So yeah, so basically as soon as you hit Blood Fury, any mortal strike, wound poison, which was already on you, is basically consumed by the racial effect, and then after 15 seconds, the Blood Fury is gone, and then like any healing reduction effect is removed. So, for example, say if I get a mortal strike 2 seconds before the Blood Fury ends, the mortal strike will still go off, or like the wound poison wouldn't even go on. But even if you mortal strike me like 2 seconds left of the orc racial, then you can actually get rid of the healing reduction effect that way.
So they don't stack with each other, right? Because I was really confused. The other day, I was kind of doing what you said. I was like, oh, I'm a Blood Fury, so I can get the wound poison off. And then people in the chat were saying like, yo, it stacks with each other, like the wound poison and the mortal strike. So you're taking like 75% reduced healing, but it doesn't seem like it works that way based on what you said. Like it's not gonna stack with each other, right? Or like it's gonna be either or. Like it'll replace any existing healing reduction.
Yeah, the Blood Fury, it literally just it replaces the healing reduction effect. Like the Blood Fury is there instead of the mortal strike. It literally like consumes it or just like replicates it or something. And yeah, you have to wait 15 seconds before you get like healed like for the full amount. So what you have to do, you have to like predict when you're going to take the damage. So you use it like really early. So for example, okay, my healer might get CC'd now. I'm going to take a lot of wound poison from the rogue. I might just use it a bit early. So when the CC ends on my partner, then he can just NS heal me out of the CC or something. And you've actually done it early. And yeah, that's probably the best way to do it.
Gotcha. Sorry, super random, but that was a question burning in my mind. All right. Let's talk about... maybe we can switch back over to PvP for a minute. S1 gear, Ozzy, going into S1. You mentioned before that you're trying to get the Stormherald. You can't get it in S1 though. You can only get the like is it a blue version? No, I think it's still epic, right? Like Deep Thunder or whatever it's called. I think you get that S1.
Yeah, it's still epic. So the first weapon you get is called Thunder, and then it progresses into Deep Thunder, where you need to do heroics to get Primal Nevers. And I think you need like 8 of them to craft the Deep Thunder. So what quite a lot of warriors do, they actually they go tanking, and like they just level up as a tank, or they just collect tank gear every time they do a quest. So then when they need to get the Deep Thunder and they need to get the Primal Nether, they'll actually tank the heroics themselves and they'll reserve the Nether instead of actually joining as a DPS, competing against 4 different people who might need the Nether, and that could take you like much longer. So that's probably the best way to get Deep Thunder, just collect tank gear and get it yourself, or just have like a really good tank.
Raids as well, though. That is definitely the play, though, man. That sounds huge, brain. Is there something that you need from the raids, though, that apparently you need to like reserve? People are saying that if you're going to go hard in PvP, like make sure super early you try to reserve something from the raids that drops as well, or is it just the Primal Nethers from heroics?
I think it's just basically it's the Primal Nethers from the last boss in heroics, and then once you had the Deep Thunder and you want to progress to the Storm Herald, Nether Vortexes drop off the trash in tier 5 raids, so Tempest Keep in SSC, and that's when people in classic TBC, people might even buy it, for example, like you'll just get summoned into the raid and buy it, or if you're in a raiding guild, you just have priority at some point and they'll just give it to you.
Gotcha, Nether Vortex. But you can get the Deep Thunder, not the Storm Herald, just by your lonesome, pretty much, doing heroics if you tank it yourself and reserve it. That's honestly pretty nice.
Pretty much, mate. Yeah.
That's pretty nice. Okay, so we did this exercise for Rogue. This might be interesting. Like, you're getting prepared for S1. You're gonna pump. In what order do you get like the gear? Like, you have nothing right now, right? Classic is out right now. You're getting arena points. Are you saving right for weapon? Are you buying rogues, for example, bought gloves first randomly for like that random rogue thing for deadly throw? You know how it gives them that interrupt? Are you getting trinkets first? Take us through how you're gonna like, you know, spend your points and gear up for season 1.
So typically I think the gloves first, because I think it gives reduced rage on hamstring by like 2. So yeah, I'll probably go for the gloves first. And let's say I'll just ding level 70 today on a classic TBC. I'll probably go on my pre-bis list and just go to dungeons, which I think could drop like the most pre-bis gear, and just farm as much rep as possible as well, because you're going to need rep from certain factions for enchants and honor gear later on, like gear you get through grinding reputation, like that can be quite good for you as well. So yeah, I'll probably just get like the pre-bis, and I just farm offset in BGs once I got some pre-bis. Yeah, I'd probably just get the gloves, and then after that on main set I just get whatever, like anything.
And then from BGs, you're getting trinket first. I'm assuming, like, just obviously the PvP trinket. If it's fresh, nobody's going to have that. And then other than that, it doesn't really matter too much. You just buy anything in any order.
Yeah, pretty much. And one thing I forgot to say is I don't usually buy rings in Season 1 from Honor, because I think maybe I buy one ring. But I'm not sure if I do, because I think the Honor ring is actually blue in Season 1. So I'm pretty sure I actually go PvE rings, and yeah, so I don't actually grind BGs for rings, just in case someone might do that. I don't think it's
the ring's really bad in Season 1. It's blue for sure. I think you use that one ring in what's it called, from Terracar Forest, right, from the Spirit Shards?
Yeah, exactly.
Or Band of the Exorcists, whatever.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, when you got Spirit Towers up, whenever you kill a boss in Shadow Labs Heroic, or I think it's Heroics, yeah, you just get...
Yeah, you can get them in normals too.
Yeah.
Is it normals as well? Oh, that's...
Spirit Towers, there's 5 towers that you have to be coveted by a certain faction, and whatever faction has that, you then get these Spirit Shards off the bosses in normals or Heroics from the Arcanite dungeons. So Arcanite, Septic Halls, Shadow Labs, Mana Tombs, and shit.
Yeah, and the meta gem as well. I usually get the meta gem and the ring from the Spirit Shards, and then I usually get the ring from Curator, Corona Signet, or maybe the ring from Prince, which is like first priority.
So if you're PvEing to PvP, which it seems like it is your plan, Ozzy, like, are you getting weird pieces out of Kara that have a bunch of stam on it? Because Season 1, is this correct or incorrect? Season 1, everybody is going to be in PvE gear for a long while until people get weapons and get enough arena points to actually buy, you know, a substantial amount of that set. So you know, are you getting stamina pieces in Kara? Is there anything, does that light a light bulb or anything?
I'm not really getting stamina pieces, but I do think quite a lot of people won't have PvP gear in Season 1, because especially like combos like Rogue Mage and Lock Rogue, they don't really kill you with gear as such. They just overwhelm you with CC. So I think they'll probably just get quite a lot of PvE gear and just like use that to their advantage. And for Warriors, I think the PvE gear is pretty good in Season 1, just because like the Honor gear doesn't give you much choice to like, I don't know, like make your character good, really. Like the rings are really bad, and you're probably going to struggle with a hit quite a lot in Season 1 anyway. So yeah, I think the PvE rings, and I usually go for Tier 4 head as well, if I can get it, because I think the stats on that are pretty nice. But yeah, just the head and rings PvE in Season 1.
Okay. Gotcha. And then once we get to the stage, you know, let's say a couple months go by, Season 1 actually is out, and you're able to spend arena points. How do you allocate your arena points? We already established gloves first. Right after gloves, do you go straight weapon, or what goes through your mind?
In Season 1 to 2, whichever is cheapest, that's usually how I do it on progressive servers. So I usually go for the legs last, because the enchant's the most expensive. So I'll probably go for like gloves, head, chest, something like that, and then I get the legs last because it's just probably the cheapest way. But like if it was Season 3 or 4, then I would prioritize getting head, chest, or leg, because they actually give armor penetration, whereas in Season 1 and 2 there's no armor penetration on items, so like the order doesn't really matter as such, as long as you get the gloves first.
I just realized I'm an idiot. I was saying weapon. Yeah, you're using Deep Thunder at this point, or Storm Herald. So the weapon is actually covered, as opposed to rogues. They might have to go straight weapon. You can actually just spend your points as you get them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My bad.
There's also like varying hit on the gear as well, right? Like I think it's from Season 2 to 3 you get more hit on the gear. It's like 2 each or something. Like the head, the chest, I think the legs as well. But that might be the difference, right? If you have to put like a 1-hit gem instead, you can prioritize those pieces and get a little bit extra hit for them.
Interesting.
Yeah, sure.
And do you have a philosophy when it comes to, you know, first of all, what meta gem are you going to be using? Maybe it changes in Season 1, maybe it's the same all throughout. And then are you gemming for a certain thing in particular, or are you just generally speaking trying to optimize for the bonuses on your pieces?
Yeah, so I usually always get the bonuses on the gear. I always get the set bonuses. Typically, the meta gem I use in Season 1 is the meta gem which gives minor speed increase and 20 attack power, and that's off the Spirit Shard Bender. And I think as a warrior, you have a choice of gemming strength or crit. I think it's more kind of down to like personal preference, what you prefer. Like, there's no wrong or like right way of doing it. Kind of like people say strength is better, people say crit is better. Even though personally, I think crit is probably a little bit better. But like, I like a balance. I quite like using the orange gems which have crit and strength on them. And in Season 1, I quite like the green ones as well. They give stamina and crit. I think it's 6 stamina and crit. It might not sound like much, but when you're so squishy in Season 1 and you're just getting destroyed by everyone and everything, then I think even like those stamina enchants, like if you get 3 of them, that's an extra 18 stamina. Like, it's unlikely, but that could maybe make you win a game or something, or help you survive a bit longer.
So it looks like you're not gemming for resilience at all, even when you have not a lot of... So is it like the type of thing where it's your best defense is more offense, where you just try to push more damage as opposed to trying to use gems for resilience or something?
You don't really see many warriors gem resilience. Not too often. I usually go for the... because I guess the crit is kind of nice as well, but the thing is, like, I think you might even get a few blue gems. I'm not even sure you could put a yellow one in it, and maybe to get the set bonus, a green one might be slightly better. But yeah, you could use the resilience as well, but you don't really see it too often on warriors. Like, you don't really see many warriors use the stamina and crit like I do, but I think it's probably the best option in Season 1 for a few like gems.
And as far as a meta gem, are you using that stun resist one, or honestly, those meta gems look fun? I like. There's a lot of different options. Or do you switch them from time to time, or do you only use one really forever?
So I only use the minor increase in 20 attack power, and then I think through a later patch or season, dual crafters can craft 24 attack power and minor speed. Or I think at one point there's a meta gem which gives 12 agility and 3% increased critical damage, something like this. So some people use that gem, but usually I don't. I always stay with the minor speed and attack power, and then I go with sure-footed on my feet because that gives chance to resist roots and snare by 5%, and it gives 10 hit as well, and hit's kind of hard to get in some seasons, so I think that's quite good.
You said you're gonna have a hard time getting hit. I thought the hit cap was so low in PvP, like 3% or something. Or is it more?
Nah, for Warriors it's 5%. It's like
5%.
80 hit rating.
So that's pretty tough to get.
Yeah, early season it is, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I had a question. I had a good question. I forgot it. You hate to see it. But, shoot. I'll think about it. Oh, yeah. What professions are you going, man, for PvP? So, in theory, people say jewel crafting, enchanting is the best, right? And especially if you have unlimited money, you can get the value out of the enchants on the ring, and then you can drop it if you want, because that's affecting your stats in-game. And same thing with the gems, you can get that. But in reality, on a fresh server, maybe things are different. Like, do you go NG due to lack of gear, or what are you going to roll in real TBC Classic, you think, for your two professions?
No, I'll go mining and blacksmith. Simply mining just so I can save a bit of gold and just mine the materials. And then blacksmith, obviously, for Deep Thunder and Stormherald. And later in Season 4 as well, there's a blacksmith pattern which drops in somewhere trash, and it's actually really, really good. So that's pretty good for that. And you could actually drop mining and go for engineering at one point. Like, that is possible. Like, you could go for the goggles. Like, some people done that. I know some people on Endless, like some warriors actually did that. And my partner in threes always used to bully me and always used to say, oh yeah, go enchanting for stats on ring. But I never done it because it's way too much of a min-max. Like, I didn't want to level up enchanting from +8 on stats. Like, I didn't feel like it was worth it.
Yeah,
so I just stayed mining and
expensive.
blacksmith.
Gotcha. So it's not as big
Yeah.
of a deal as people think. Like, it's not like if you're going to be seen as a noob if you don't have you don't have the enchants on your rings or anything. You'll be okay.
For a warrior, no, but for other classes, it's huge.
Oh, it is. Probably because the spell damage. I think you get spell damage on rings for warlocks and shit, which is what you're going for, right? It seems a bit better than the all stats.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Let's go back to the agenda, see what what we have left here. Maybe we can talk about PvE rotation for arms, like on the arms Fury side. We're all over the place, folks, but hopefully you're getting some good nuggets out of this. I'm sure learning a lot. Hope you guys in the chat are enjoying it. For PvE arms rotation, there's some enthusiasts for arms. Like, they love it. I've asked some people who are like big brains, and they said I've never had more fun than playing like an arms warrior in TBC. I don't even really understand the allure to it. I mean, you just hit Mortal Strike a lot of times. Like, is there anything that comes to mind at all that's super fun about it? And then also, I heard Slam is randomly good in TBC. This is another question. Bouncing around up top. Have you played PvE Warrior, Abide? Like
yeah, so I think in Classic, I think improved Slam as a talent, right? I don't know the talent trees too well, but I'm pretty sure improved Slam as a talent. I think it's 5 talent points, right? To get half a second off of Slam.
Let me check. Right now.
I think it's good.
For you.
So in TBC, it's 2 talent points to get 1 second off of Slam, so it becomes a half a second cast. So it's like actually pretty good damage. You use it as like your main. It's one of your main abilities in your rotation. You pretty much want to, you Mortal Strike on cooldown, Whirlwind if you have the Rage, and you Slam. Pretty much, so Slam resets your auto swing timer. So you need to watch your swing timer, like as arms warrior. That's probably why a lot of people are like real enthusiastic about it, because it's one of like the harder rotations in TBC in reality, because there's a lot of things you need to be watching, like your rage income and your swing timer, stuff like that. But yeah, so you need to basically line up the slam with the swing timer. So you want to slam ideally right after your swing timer goes off, so you lose the least amount of time on your next swing.
I see.
But it's kind of fun. It's interactive. It's not like, some classes are like Warlock or Hunter. You're just spamming one button 90% of the time, right? But some classes like Arms and Boomkin and Shadow Priest have like a sort of priority system where you're doing a bunch of different spells.
Wait, so Slam resets your swing timer, right? Like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's only 2 points for the 0.5 instead of 5 points.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So it's 2 points for 1 second instead of 5 for 0.5. It's like massively buffed.
So if you have a really hefty two-hander, like let's say it's a 3/8 weapon or something, and you swing, and then you do a half-second slam right after, you swing right after that half second?
No. So like, so say my swing timer is 3 seconds long, and I wait 2.5 seconds. So my swing is going to go off soon. If I do a slam, my swing timer gets reset to 3 seconds. So if you clip it's basically like clipping dots, kind of, right?
I got you. So it's
like if you clip the swing, you lose white hits, basically. So you have to like pay attention to your swing timer, and you can only slam right after the white hit goes off, or you just straight clip that white hit and lose it.
Oh, so okay, I was a little bit confused. So I thought you.
Yeah, I probably just said it in a bad way.
No. I think it's my fault. Like, so you have a 3-second swing timer, right? Is it when you use slam, it's going to reset you back to 0, so any momentum towards your next swing is lost?
Yeah, exactly.
So wouldn't you use it 2.5 seconds into your swing? You would use it so that there is no loss, because you have a 5.5 second cast that goes off and you swing, or?
I mean, it's hard to say with how it functions on retail versus private servers. I've only played it on messed around with it on a couple private servers, and it's functioned differently on both. Like, one of them you could do that, one of them you couldn't. So I don't know how it's supposed to be in Classic, but I'm pretty sure if you do the slam, you're not able to auto attack while you're casting it, right? So if you do that, then you'll slam at the end and you won't auto attack. But you never know, like with ping and batching type of stuff, maybe you can get both in at the end. Because batching is another thing that isn't around on private servers, right? So maybe with that system in place, you can time it and get a slam and a white hit right at the end. But you shouldn't be able to, because the slam is an actual cast, right? So you can't auto attack while casting.
So on a real simple note, it's kind of like Hunters. You just don't want to clip your white hits.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to get it right after it goes off.
I gotcha. Interesting. Well, that's cool to see her, because slam is, you pretty much never use slam in Classic. I don't really see people use it that much.
Yeah, they nerfed it really hard. It was actually really good on the beta for Classic, and then it was really overpowered, so they nerfed it to 5 talents for half a second, and it was just dead useless talent, right?
So interactive rotation, slam is good. A lot of things to manage. Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean it's people are there's a lot of really easy rotations in TBC, if you want to even call them rotations. Like, it's just 1 to 2 buttons for the whole fight. But some classes like Shadow Priest and Arms, you have to do a lot of things. Feral's kind of one of them as well. You need to pay attention to a lot of different bars that are on your character and stuff like that, buffs, debuffs, all that stuff. It's constantly watching things, and Arms is one of them at the top for sure.
I wonder, this might be juicy for Azzy. Maybe Azzy already knows the answer to this. Could you go PvP spec Arms and then just raid like that, because you're already providing your utility with the 4%, and then you wouldn't even have to respec, and you could just chill and do PvP and then just show up to raid and do what you got to do?
Ooh,
are you
maybe.
I mean, you still have the debuff though, and you're just a little bit less damage, but your damage is kind of sus anyway, right? So
you can't get an improved slam though, right? It's PvP spec.
Unless you went the sweeping strike spec, maybe.
Yeah, but then you're kind of giving yourself in both areas, right?
You wouldn't want to get the slam, that's for sure. If you went PvP, you definitely wouldn't want to get the slam.
Yeah,
you'd have to get them. Yeah, you'd have to get them more. It might get a little bit sticky if you do that, to be honest.
I mean, you could for sure. The content's not going to be that hard. It's going to be a little bit harder than Classic. It's not going to be terrible though. You could do it, but I think most guilds would prioritize somebody that would be willing to swap specs every time and fully try hard on the content.
Yeah, swapping specs isn't even the most painful thing. Usually it's having to swap gear around in gems and shit. It's really annoying, so you could just respec and pretty much, at least early, you're using probably the same gear in PvE as PvP, it looks like. If you're Arms in both. Maybe with a few exceptions, right? But couldn't you just use in Season 1 all the stuff you're raiding with, Ozzy? Or not?
Oh, what, in PvP? What item-wise?
Yeah, except for trinket and shit. You go to raid and you assume, because you're gemming for crit and strength and stuff, you would assume all the gear you're getting from Kara and stuff, you could just go right into the arena with it.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah, that's probably what I would do. I'll probably just get Prebis, get Kara gear, and I'll farm BGs for the offset. When I'm not doing heroics and stuff, or when basically I'll probably do heroics, and when they're all on cooldown and I've got ID, I'll probably just do battlegrounds to the offset, and then I'll just buy main set with arena AP. That's probably how I'll do it.
Gotcha. As far as a battleground strategy too, is there anything that sticks out? Is there one that gives more honor than others that you would just spam, or
On Endless, we used to just get pre-made, and we used to literally just win every BG. That was probably the best way to do it. Just get like a pre-made and just like rinse game after game after game after game. It's probably the best way.
So you're thinking Warsong though, or doesn't matter? You just queue everything.
We just farm everything. We just get as much badges as we can. And like if we've got loads of badges saved over, we might just cash them in for honor. Because some games we're just running in, and there's like 4 enemies, so we're just running in to insta win, just getting like loads and loads of marks. So we just like farm every other BG to get as much marks as you can. But like it kind of depends on faction balance though, like how much you can actually rinse the BGs with a pre-made. So like if you're Horde, you might be waiting quite long, and if you're Alliance and you got a pre-made, I think that'll be much faster. I think you get like real fast queues compared to Horde.
Okay.
I think the queues should be pretty good overall because it's going to be probably battle groups, right? I assume that's how Classic WoW is, right? There's battle groups of different servers connected, so the queues should be fine for the most part. I think one thing real quick is the badges. I don't think there's a quest in. Is there a classic that lets you turn in 1 badge from each PvP for honor? There's not, right? There's one for each individual place, right?
Yeah, there might be like a one-time one that you can do it or something in Classic. I forget, but it's not like you do it because it's a daily thing in TBC, right? You can just
no, it's just a repeatable quest.
It's your main source of honor, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Those in. You turn in one mark of each 4 BGs, and you get a good amount of honor, like 300 something. On Blizzard servers, it'll be 300, right? Private servers.
Yeah, I think it's 314. It's pretty good. It's 1 of each mark. It's just like as he said, like you just want to pre-made it and just slam stuff down, clear, win the BG as fast as possible, stack the marks up, and turn them in.
Okay.
Azzy, what skill's better for warrior in arenas, AP or crit?
It's a sticky one, man. Like some people say strength, some people say crit. Personally, I quite like. If I had to pick like strength or crit, I'd probably say crit a bit more, just because like when you crit, you get more rage. So theoretically, more rage you have, more globals you can spend. So I'd probably pick crit over a strength.
Yeah, I think it's actually just like crit's almost always better, and especially at the late. Like you pretty much never kill anyone unless you crit, right? Like you're not gonna kill anyone if you don't crit. Like the strength is like might be mathematically better on paper, but you're gonna enjoy it more if you if you have more crit. Like the rage you get, like you said, it's massively higher. Like there's a lot more functionality with the critting, like versus not.
I gotcha. Just so people can get like a good foundation here. There's other stats too, and to see like what your take on it, especially about this, is like so juicy. I mean, like how you view these things when it comes to PvE stats, like whether it's a tank or fury. You have haste, you have armor pen, you have crit. All these things, like I assume hit is the most valuable, but maybe there is a stat weight on it. Maybe like there is something like with the right piece, it could be better than hits. How do you view these things, and what order of importance are they to you?
Hit's really good. I would probably always hit cap.
Is it 9% for warrior? Not, or is it?
Yeah. If you have a boomkin, it's 6 because the boomkin gives 3% with fairy fire. So it depends on the raid comp a little bit. You kind of just need to know that before you go in. But 9% is the hit cap, yeah, for that. I would go for that for every spec. For Fury Warrior, obviously you have dual wield penalty, so hit rating's a little bit better past 9%. But they should, I believe they added it, right? The heroic strike bug with your offhand not missing while heroic strike is queued.
Yeah,
I believe that's there in Classic. That's still there in TBC as well. So assuming they put it in there, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, the hit rating kind of loses some value after cap. So I wouldn't like worry about it. I wouldn't like actively seek it. If you get it, it's there. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But I wouldn't go gemming for it and stuff like that after 9%. But yeah, I still think hit cap's a big deal, especially for tank. There's a lot of like tank swap mechanics. So you want to have as much hit rating as possible. Expertise is really nice as well. It's kind of like the replacement for weapon skill.
Whoops,
from Classic.
That one. Yep.
It's basically just it converts weapons or expertise rating to skill, and then the skill gives you percentage reduction, 0.25% per point for dodge and parry to be reduced. So typically, as a DPS, you can't be parried if you're behind the boss. So you want to cap out for dodge. So you want to get to 26 expertise for raids, because that gives you dodge cap if you're behind the boss.
Is this right after hit in terms of prio? As soon as you meet that hit criteria, you're like, all right, time to try to get expertise into the right spot? Or is...
it's kind of something that you just should be conscious of. It's not really something you could seek out, because expertise wasn't really available at the start of the game. They didn't add expertise until like 2.3. so it's not really actively available. There's some things like orc racials.
Right.
If you go black, maybe if you're like really PvE min max, you want to go axe spec if you're an orc for blacksmithing, because you get expertise per weapon, right? So it adds up. But there are some pieces. There's like trash gloves, even like honestly, like edge masters are really good as well still.
But before tier 6, there's like no expertise, right? So
yeah, basically, there's very few niche pieces around here or there, so it's not something you can actively like stack up and aim for. There's no gems for it or anything like that, but it's something you can keep in the back of your mind. Later on, there's more availability and gear around it, so you can shift around a bit. But as a tank, I like the expertise count.
Hypothetically, let's say you have all gear, like it's the end of the server, and you're just choosing from everything. Would expertise be the next important thing to ensure that you're at 26 after hit, though? Just like philosophically, to understand how important this stuff is.
I mean, it depends. Probably, I can't remember exactly if warrior can expertise cap an in-game gear. I think you can, so it's pretty good. I think arms easily can, and I think fury cannot. But you get a lot of expertise from the gear. But I would say it's basically like you want to wear the strongest pieces of gear, and then you see your expertise after. You probably would you would be basically swapping one piece of gear out. But I believe you don't expertise cap from full bis. It's not like you absolutely need it, but it's just something nice to have.
I see.
I would for a tank. It's different for a tank. At least for a tank, you want to expertise cap. Like you could even hard cap at like 64 for never get parried either. But you definitely want to at least soft cap as tank because you can take dodge and parry. It's kind of like double value, right?
Yeah. So it's twice as good. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. So it's really good to cap as tank. As DPS is kind of just something extra, and like absolute like all the gear, it's not like second prio. I'd say probably getting like armor pin cap as second prio, and then after that maybe expertise.
Oh, armor pen cap second prio. Interesting. Armor pen is a very interesting stat, folks. It's not like it doesn't have a diminishing return. It's the opposite of a diminishing return. Like, so the more armor pen you get, it doesn't have a diminishing return. Yeah, it has a. Well, I guess it does if the boss is at 0.
It has like an exponential return, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has a
return.
Yeah, exactly.
Return. So, but once the boss is 0, then you don't get any more value from it.
Yeah, then it's a complete drop off. It's 0 value.
Right. So yeah, there is a limit on this, right?
Yeah. I mean, each boss is different, so like you ideally want to have 2 sets. One for like there's multiple different bosses with armor. They kind of normalized it later on to be 6200 and 7700. It's not exactly that. It's a little bit different, but like that's what everyone says: 6200, 7700. But you typically want to have a gear set for both. So you'll typically like, okay, this boss is high armor, so I'll wear my high armor set, but that has a little more armor pen, and then you swap back and forth depending on it.
That's such a hilarious thing about TBC that they literally have 1 or 2 buckets, and then that probably applies to all the melees and even probably even hunters and stuff too. You swap things around based on the boss armor. It's a cool little finesse mechanic of TBC. I actually like it. Sorry, you're saying
is expertise the same for main hand and offhand?
If it's from gear, yeah. But if you're getting it from your racial, for example, like I mentioned, orcs wearing blacksmith axes, if you're getting that, the expertise from the weapon is applied to that hand only. So like if you have an axe in your main hand and a sword in your offhand, your main hand will have more expertise in your offhand. If it's from baseline gear, like if your gear has expertise, then it's applied to your character overall. But if it's from a racial on the it's applied to the specific hand that the weapon is on.
I see. Okay, and then the main thing, which is it's kind of confusing, haste is kind of the X factor. Like, what does haste even do for a warrior? I actually have no idea. Does it reduce their global cooldown? Does it like is it good? I saw this one guide where they said haste is the best stat for warrior. So,
it's the best. It's kind of your best threats talent for prot warriors. It doesn't reduce your global at all. It reduces just your swing timer. So you swing faster, you swing more often, right? For prot warriors, it's pretty good because that means more heroic strikes. And heroic strike is like your main threat. So it's really good in that sense. But it also depends on the rage you're getting as well, right? If you're like in an ideal situation as prot warrior, you're at 100 rage the whole time, and you can heroic strike every time. So the faster your weapon is, the more heroic strikes you do, and like your threat just goes up accordingly. So haste is like your best threat set for, or your best threat stat for prot. But for arms, it's not bad. I mean, people kind of say it's pretty bad for arms, but in reality, I think it's pretty much fine for arms. Like you only have one thing that clips with your autos, and that's slam. It's not something you seek out for either spec, arms or fury, but it's just something you kind of get on gear, and it's there.
Oh, so haste isn't something you really prio, or it just exists. It's not something.
It just exists. I mean, a lot of your gear has it. A lot of the gear you upgrade to gets it. It's kind of neat, but it's not anything like, wow, this is crazy. I need to get a bunch of this.
So crit, on the other hand, is something that would you prio, or maybe like how does crit weigh in for with regards to like attack power or strength or whatever? Is it? Would you?
I think crit is. I haven't done the things in a while, like the exact calculations, but I'm pretty sure crit is like one thing you want to cap out as fury as soon as possible. And quote unquote cap out. There's no real cap, but you want to like get to the point where you have almost 100% uptime on flurry, which is like I believe it's like 38.5% crit, something like that. So that you have flurry just is whenever you crit, you get attack speed, right? So you obviously want to like have as much uptime on that as possible. So you aim for that kind of goal around like 38%, because there's different things, right? Like the boss is a higher level, so it has crit suppression, stuff like that, right? So you want to have around 38% crit. After that, you prioritize strength. For arms, you can go either way, to be honest. I think crit's a little bit better for arms because you attack a little bit slower, so it's kind of like the same mentality as PvP, right? So like you attack slow, so you want to crit on those attacks, so you have more rage. You can do more. The more rage you have, the more like special abilities you can do, right? Like if you have a bunch of rage, you can always slam. If you have a bunch of rage, you can always throw out like a whirlwind if you're capped, or a heroic strike or whatever. So I think crit's a little bit like you don't really go for crit cap as arms. I think it's kind of something you want to just keep getting. And fury, you want to aim for like 38% or so, just to kind of get the flurry up time to near 100%.
Makes sense. Okay. Gotcha. And just real quick on the tanking side of thing, just the basic housekeeping. Do you know off the top of your head like defense cap or something? Is that the prio for you? If you're trying to be a warrior tank, you get the defense squared away, or maybe it's not so big of a deal. For the other tanks, they pretty much just said, I think you need enough defense for the situation, then you just stack the hell out of stam. I don't know if it's the same for warrior.
I mean, so the defense cap it's 485 for heroics and then 490 for raids. I mean, personally, I wouldn't raid without being defense cap, because you're gonna look like an absolute tool if you wipe the raid because you got crit, right? So, but at the end of the day, like it's probably not gonna matter if you do get crit. I definitely would not. I would not divert myself away from dungeons if I'm not crit capped. Like that won't matter. I would say it's probably your top priority for raiding for sure. I wouldn't raid without being crit capped personally, but. Okay. If you do get crit here or there, it's not like you're gonna wipe guaranteed at the early content at least, right?
Is this something you can get though, like phase like on launch, like going into Kara or whatever? Like, are you able to get?
Yeah, definitely. Like you just need to farm a bunch of the rep items, a lot of the dungeon set. There's dungeon sets in TBC. I think there's dungeon sets in classic, right? D1, D2.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can upgrade them. There's a dungeon set 3 in TBC, and like there's one for each spec kind of thing, and there's a tanking one, and it's got all defense on it, and then there's crafted gear like fail steel stuff. It's not like easy to get, but it's not like difficult. There's trinkets. Someone mentioned earlier in the chat, the Beery's trinket is like a Nether Storm trinket. It's from a quest chain. You can get that. There's like a trinket from Shadow Labs that has defense on it. Like it's definitely possible to get defense cap if you put the time into it and farm the dungeons and the rep and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems fairly straightforward, and then you kind of just get what stats what you get on the gear. Like if you have a bit of dodge here or a bit of whatever here, it's those things exist. But that's
definitely. And then after that, it's like just stamina. Like you just want to be a beefy boy.
A beefy boy.
Yep.
All right.
Gotta take those hits, man.
Gotta take those hits. Last thing, if you guys have any questions in the chat, now's a good time. Like anything burning in your heart, any future warrior mains in the chat, now's the time. We're towards the tail end of this year. We'll be wrapping up kind of soon. At this point, we're going to start shilling the hell out of their channels and stuff, dude. We try to get some follows and get them some growth for their time. One kind of low-hanging fruit thing we can talk about for a second is gold farming. If you're maining a tent, it's just something you have to deal with, right? All classes, you have to, have some income. Is there a decent way for warriors to farm gold? What are you doing? Personally,
I mean, personally, I like playing the auction house a lot. I mean, there's no chance you're farming anything as warrior. Like, you need to have an ult, or you need to play the auction house. Like, warriors, like, just the worst class for farming anything at all.
Yeah. Ozzy, you mentioned mining. Is that your plan?
What's that, mate?
You mentioned mining. Is that your plan?
Nah, maybe a little bit, but I'll probably just farm fell armaments in Shadow Labs because you get rep at the same time, and maybe you get lucky enough to reserve them, maybe, if you're a tank. And maybe the Elemental Plateau, but I think that's going to be like a mini Warsong Gulch up there, so...
Yeah, enjoy that as a warrior.
Yeah, so... Nah, I'm probably just farming Shadow Labs and stuff.
There's always, like, weird things you could do, like fishing, stuff like that, like gathering, herbing, if you have herbalism for some reason, or mining. Like, you can always do stuff like that, but... I mean, you're always just going to be inferior to the superior. Like, Paladin has 20% movement speed, and, you know, Druid can instantly do that. And there's one thing, actually, that's actually really good is, I should mention, is because you'll most likely have engineering. You can get a moat extractor in Zangarmarsh from a quest, and you can, like, there's like, clouds that fly around. They're, like, you can extract them with this moat extractor, and you get, like, you know, 2 or 3 or 5, like, primal, or motes of air and stuff like that. So that's actually, like, probably your best bet if you want to farm in the warrior and you don't want to have an ult, and you don't want to do auction house stuff. That would be the best thing to do, would be to moat farm.
No, that's big brain. And yeah, like, I know everybody should have an ult and stuff, but especially in the early formative stages of the server,
yeah,
right, guys,
definitely.
like, you're not going to have time. Like, you're going to have stuff to do, right? So you're just going to have to find a way to make gold, even if you're on a warrior, so...
Yeah, the cloud farming for sure would be the way to go if you're a prot warrior, or if you're a warrior with engineering. If not, I mean, you're kind of, you know, SOL, but...
Yep. Somebody asked, Marcus, bro, I'd like to hear Azzy and Abide's prediction on the best comps for Season 1 for a warrior in 2s and 3s. Maybe, Azzy, if you could be so kind.
Yeah, I think the best combo in 2s for you to play... Oh, this is... In Season 1, it's different because typically I'd say Priest Warrior isn't the best comp. Like, maybe it's not bad Season 4-ish with some Summon items, but still it's far from top tier. But in Season 1, Priest Warrior I think is actually not that bad because the absorbs are actually really strong. And I feel like if the other team can't purge the absorbs, they're really, really good. Warrior Druid is like, it's probably the worst Warrior Druid is in Season 1. Like, it's not really the best. Pala Warrior is not really that great either. Maybe if you go like full try hard, go engineering and get the engineering belt, which has like a 7k absorb or something. Like, if you go full try hard with Palawar, maybe you can make it work.
You can use that in the arena?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
What? 7k absorb belt in the arena? I never heard of that. That's sick.
Yeah, I remember like some full try hard Hurdy Pallets in Season 1. They used to rock that belt and have a 7k absorb on top of 2 bubbles.
I think they didn't they change it later so you couldn't use it? I can't remember. No, they changed like the rocket boots so you couldn't use them.
Nah, rocket boots you couldn't use, but I think you could always use the belt.
Yo,
so, yeah, it's like
sick.
if you go full try hard, maybe Palawar and Shaman Warrior in 2s is really underprivileged. I think Warrior Shaman like actually starts becoming competitive in like Season 3 when they get MP5 and haste. So Season 1, like, it's cut like they're all like on a similar level sort of thing. Not one is much stronger than the other, apart from Warrior Shaman being really weak. But like they're the same kind of level, I'd say.
Gotcha. Okay, and then maybe on the 3s, what are you gonna play on that? Season 1.
On the 3s, WLD. That's hands down my favorite combo in 3s. I think that if you want to get like a title on a warrior and you actually want to like compete, I think WLD is probably your best option in Season 1 in 3s. Maybe even double healer, like that could work a little bit, or even turbo cleave with a enhancement shaman and a resto druid with the warrior. Like, those combos could compete in 3s. Like, they're not bad.
Gotcha. Hopefully that answered your question there, Marcus. Let me see if there's any last things. That looks like we're about it. Crix, you have anything, man?
Oh, man, I'm just fielding questions, man. This next time, if I miss any of your questions, stay out in chat and I'll ask them again.
Yeah, we're going to keep putting these Twitch, Ozzy's Twitch in here, and also, sorry, I don't know if I got it before, but if you have your Twitch, I'll throw it in there too.
Oh yeah, I mean I can put it. I'm not streaming right now, but maybe I'll start streaming on this new one.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Ozzy, are you streaming after this, by the way, too? Do you want the host, or are you taking a break?
Yeah, we could go some games. That's cool.
Okay, hell yeah. So pretty soon here, we're gonna pass it off to Ozzy. We're gonna keep putting this. Here's Abide's Twitch if you guys want to follow him as well. Hopefully he'll get some streaming in. All right. But yeah, guys, I hope you learned something. I hope this can be helpful to you. Maybe we get closer to TBC, you can revisit this stuff. Maybe we can close with just some final words of wisdom to the future warriors out there, if anything comes to mind. You know, going into TBC as a warrior. Maybe nothing comes to mind. Abide, do you have anything?
I mean, consumables are your best friend. Like, there's a lot of things you need to have. You need to have, like, speed pots. Mighty Rage pots are massive as well. Like, immolation, sapphire charges, bombs, all that stuff. Ungirl crystals will still really good. Like, there's a lot of, like, vanilla items you still use, and a lot of TBC items you use as well. You kind of need to... You need to, like, utilize everything you have in your kit and everything you can get possibly to, like, function at a top level. So it's a lot of, like, consumable usage, reaction pots, everything is, like, there you're using. Anything you can have available to you, you should be trying to use to, you know, stay ahead.
Wise words. Ozzy, anything for the future warriors, maybe on the PvP side of things? Any tips?
Just stay strong in Season 1. Try get a Deep Thunder if you can. Like, I feel like it's too big not to get. And maybe even Polar, like, Axe Spec is not actually that bad in Season 1 until you get your Deep Thunder. Because, like, your base crit is really low as it is, so an extra 5% from crit is actually not that bad in Season 1, so just grind for the Deep Thunder and, yeah, try and make it happen, really.
Gotcha. All right, man. You live? I'll pass it off. I guess I can just host and you'll go live and it'll be there. But guys, stick around. Ozzy will demonstrate what he's been talking about here. He's actually so much fun to watch. Like, I watch his stream all the time. You should definitely check it out. 100%. Amazing stream to watch. So we're gonna host him here. I'm gonna be doing hardcore soon in a little bit here. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. Chris, my brother, do you have any parting words for the people as well? What's your plan? What's going on?
One of these private servers has allowed me to boost every class to 60 with phase 6 gear on from classic in-game biz, so I've been just chain leveling characters of the chat's choosing. Right now I'm leveling an enhancement shaman with phase 6 gear on, so I'm doing that for the next couple weeks until we get an announcement. I still raid on the couple days a week, but that's on the weekends, you know.
Hell yeah, and we'll be starting a guild on that Endless 2.0 fresh.
Oh yeah, new fresh. Okay, well, while you said, I guess there's one new fresh server coming up for anybody who wants to play on Endless. It's a fresh server. It's a fast-paced server as well. It'll be ×7 to ×8 leveling speed, so it'll get you through leveling. And on top of that, there's another server that's going to allow people to boost to 58 or 60 with the phase 6 gear on as well, but that's not for another week or so. So you guys will be able to do a fresh server. We're going to start a guild with us. You guys can practice everything you want to practice, see the T4, T5, T6 raids, or you can boost to 60 with phase 6 gear on, practice your dungeon runs, practice your leveling, practice whatever.
Hell yeah, man. Crix has been going hard at the streaming, just killing it, crushing it. Crix, we got to put your YouTube in there too. He has a massive amount of guides now at this point, like probably dozens at this point, and really quality stuff. So definitely follow Crix. He's in the chat right now if you want to follow him. Guys, it's been real. I'll be live with the hardcore in a little bit. Take it easy. We're going to host Ozzy now.